Peace, family. Hope you all are well. That's, of course, Dr. Bakari K. Lumumba, the progenitor of LumumbaSpeaks.com, a Black empowerment initiative where we believe we gain a competitive advantage by always betting on Black, in conjunction, of course, with Equaline Network, the Pan African social media extraordinaire in the home of African centered news and information. If you're watching, make sure you hit the thumbs up button. Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. Like, subscribe, and share. We have a great show for you all this evening. Great conversation that I hope we have. Once again, family, as you all know, if you want to be a blessing to the show, you can hit the super chat as well as Cash App and Venmo. Um, but the link is in the description. The link will be, of course, in the chat momentarily. But we're going to be addressing the nonsense behind so-called FBA delineation. Right? I saw a video, a brief interview, a snippet of an interview between Crimson Cure and of course Dennis Sperling, right? And I didn't want to watch it because I knew it was going to be full of some nonsense. But I actually pushed myself to watch the video, or more so listen to the video. I was working on some other projects. And I said this is an issue that we need to address. So we're going to really, this would be more so of a reaction. We starting off the video doing like a reaction to, of course, their interview, some of the comments and claims that they've made. And then we'll do maybe a deeper dive into why I think it's of course, nonsensical, right? Why I'm calling it nonsense and where we can move forward from there. So once again, family, if you're watching, make sure you put you like, subscribe, and share, thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up, hit the notification bell. And just put a 1 in the chat if you're familiar with Dennis Sperling and Crimson Cure. Put a 2 in the chat if you are unfamiliar with both of these individuals. So put a 1 in the chat if you are familiar with them, and put a 2 in the chat if you're unfamiliar. Definitely hope we can have a lot of engagement this evening. Once again, family, as I said it before, you're watching LumumbaSpeaks.com, the Black Empowerment Initiative, where we believe we could gain a competitive advantage by always betting on Black, in conjunction, of course, with, of course, Equaline Network, the Pan African social media extraordinaire in the home of Africa-centered news and information. So today is November 12th, 2025. So let me bring this up. I'm going to share my screen and then we will get started here. Okay, so 2. Okay, got you. RBG first. You said 2. Very good. No problem. You will be aware momentarily. Don't know if that'll be a good thing or not, but just check this out. So before I get started, Crimson Cure, she's a sister. Mary Shah, appreciate you, sister. I believe she's out of Chicago. I believe that she's a member of the Nation of Islam. Don't quote me on that, but she's made some inferences to being a member of the Nation, at least a former member of the Nation. But she's kind of made inroads in the YouTube streets regarding basically what she argues is a lack of femininity in the Black community, right? So women are acting like as women. She typically makes the argument that a lot of contemporary Black or African American women engage in what she calls hyena behavior. Dennis Sperling, on the other hand, is a attorney, barrister, right, in Houston, Texas, along with, of course, the lead attorney. He, from what I've gathered from watching some of his content, is a Black conservative. But one of the things I've noticed, particularly in Black YouTube, is a lot of individuals tend to coalesce on issues, right? We tend to find that particularly individuals who have a large following, if one person says something, everyone will start to make the same argument, even if they don't thoroughly understand the argument. We tend to find this even in the Black manosphere, right? There was a time where individuals, all of a sudden, everyone started saying women shouldn't have the right to vote, but they really couldn't expurgate why, right? Women shouldn't have the right to vote, other than just saying, oh, because they shouldn't, so they can't serve in the military, even though women can serve in the military. So we tend to find this. So I think it's a lot of a groupthink actually taking place here. A lack of critical thinking, individuals not being able to do a deeper dive into the issues at hand. And as a result, we tend to find this type of promotion of misinformation or surface level information regarding what many would perceive to be critical issues in the Black community. And that could be, of course, in the diaspora, on the continent, or even amongst the African American community. So that is something to, of course, consider. Sister Shy, which individual are you familiar with? Would it be Crimson Cure, or would it be, of course, Dennis Sperling? You can put that in the comments, in the chat. That would be greatly appreciated. And then, of course, we're going to get started with the video. So once again, it might be a bit cringe-worthy, right? So that is just, a disclaimer there. But we're going to get started because I want you all to get a thorough understanding of what's going on here. So I'm going to share my screen, and then we will get started. And of course, I will respond. I will try to kind of let it play through. Then I will respond when I think it's needed and necessary to address some of the misinformation and so I would argue subterfuge that's taking place during this conversation. And of course, this conversation is for public consumption, so I don't think there's an issue with me, of course, critiquing or responding to what they're saying, because the conversation, once again, family, is being made for public consumption.
And for the reasons, because I think most people would agree with you for the reasoning, and because I've heard that be said over these internet streets for a while about the resources that our ancestors fought for, laws, certain benefits that have been fought for. And the issue for some of us is that the way we see it is our brethren come here, immigrate here, whether they're first generation, second generation, what have you. And the word that's usually used for this is cosplay, to adapt our talking, some aspects of our culture, the way that we move as much as possible. And then to get certain opportunities or certain benefits that are reserved for FBA or Black Americans. Get those opportunities, benefits, whatever you want to call it. And then after it's gotten, they're proud to say where they're from. Nigeria or Ghana or the Caribbean or what have you. They proudly delineate, which I have to say, I don't have a problem with no.
So one, this is an issue. And Sister Shy, I hope you can let me know why you unsubscribed. So this is why so I would argue right here, she's starting off in a manner that is disingenuous, right? She states that brothers and sisters from the continent in the Caribbean come to the good old US of A, right? And we can say good old US of A in earmarks, ear quotes, earmarks, to poach resources from African Americans that are earmarked for African Americans. Here's my issue with that argument. I'm 42 years old. I'm an African American, and I have never once in my life known or heard of there being particular benefits in my lifetime that are earmarked for African Americans. So once again, she's starting out by making a claim that is simply averts the facts. She also states that there are brothers and sisters from the continent in the Caribbean who come to the United States and cosplay as an African American. They adopt the dress, the vernacular, the mannerisms, and then when they are successful in reaping the benefits of cosplaying as African American, they then say, now I'm from Nigeria, Ghana. Here's the issue. Any Black person in America knows if you are unapologetically proud of being Black or being African American, you typically are shunned by society, right? You don't receive benefits for doing that, right? But here's the bigger issue, family. When she makes this claim, she provides no examples to substantiate this argument. Not one whatsoever. This is going to be a consistent theme throughout their conversation. They make a claim that, of course, on its face is adverse to facts, but then as a result of that, they are unable to make a claim to substantiate. Just give me one example of a brother or sister from the continent of the Caribbean cosplaying as an African American, and as a result, receiving benefits that were reserved politically, economically, or socially for African Americans. And then when they receive those benefits, they then say, hey, I'm not an African American, I'm actually from Nigeria, Ghana, the Caribbean, etc. Can't provide one example. So this is something to consider. This is why I don't have respect for these individuals. And just very quickly, because many people say, well, you're talking about them, why don't you bring them on your channel? I sent them emails and Instagram messages today. I do this when I have a critique of someone, I'll reach out to the individual. But as you all know, I typically don't want that smoke because I'm an actual scholar. I'm actually knowledgeable of the issues that I'll talk about. We saw the same issue with Afro Elite, where he was simply making claims that were adverse to facts, that were ahistorical, and he didn't give a 747 bleep about the fact that he was making claims that were false at all, right? Because the goal is what? Viewership. Something to consider, but we will continue.
Nobody delineate. I don't have an issue with anyone saying this is where I come from, this is our culture, and be proud of that. However, I'm also seeing that it's problematic to everybody else. Mm-hmm. Now that we're doing the same thing, there's a lot of pushback, and I'm not going to say everybody. I wouldn't even know whether or not I could say majority or minority, but there is pushback to us in saying you don't need to delineate because you don't really have a real culture anyways.
Once again, provide an example. She said, I don't know if it's a majority, I don't know if it's a minority, because she's speculating. Provide a particular example in which a group of Black people from the continent of the Caribbean said, we have an issue with the fact that you are proud of being an African American. I'm 42 years old. I've never had that experience a day in my life. Right? So once again, making claims that are adverse to facts, making claims that are on their face, patently false, and being unable to substantiate. I'm even asking for personal anecdotes. Right? We even got to do a deep dive in scholarship. Provide a personal anecdote of a Black person from the continent of the Caribbean saying, you should not be proud of the fact that you are an African American. That's all I'm looking for. Unable to do so. These are simply the talking points that individuals of this ilk use.
Mm-hmm. Nobody wants to be Black. Nobody's trying to be Black with y'all because y'all are basically the bottom of the barrel.
Right.
And whenever I hear that speech, I'm just got to be real honest, I hear white survivalist talking points. Mm-hmm. Black people are lazy. They've been calling us lazy since they had to let us off them plantations.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, what's something to consider here is she talks about white survivalist talking points, but you're going to find that in this conversation or interview, they're going to actually be parroting and engaging in a form of nominal white nationalism. Check it out.
Since our ancestors, since they had to let our ancestors off that plantation and they could no longer receive slave labor from us, we was lazy Negroes from that point, from that day to this. We've been late. That's been the talking point. We've been lazy. We don't want to work. We just want a handout. Even when we start talking about reparations, that is even characterized as wanting a handout. Now, I've actually made some of my subscribers a little mad about my stance on reparations. Mm-hmm. I think some of them don't really get where I'm coming from. I understand that it is a debt that needs to be paid. Reparations is not something that I feel like, slavery is over. I'm not going to say that because my father was picking cotton. My dad.
My mother.
Not my great, my dad.
Yeah, my mother too. My mother picked cotton.
Right.
Yeah.
So so we're not even gonna play with that.
Right.
So it's not that far away. What, a generation or two at best, 3 maybe.
And I think she's misinterpreting chattel enslavement with sharecropping, right? So that is an issue. I think she's misinterpreting chattel enslavement with sharecropping. I think, let's see here. I think I was in the chat when she did the show. I used to tune into her show a lot, but I don't always comment in the chat. Okay, very good. So why did you unsubscribe to her? That's what I would like to know. But something to consider here. Yeah, but if you could let me know why you unsubscribed, that would be greatly appreciated.
But aside from that, let me try to get around to a point, because I'm trying to figure out, why is it viewed as vitriol and hatred coming from us now that we're doing a little bit of line drawing in the sand and saying, no, this is who we are. And we good with who we are. You can be who you are, but this is who we are. And we're good with that. We, whatever our shortcomings are as a group of people, it is what it is. But we're not going to shy away from being FBA. We're not going to shy away from being Black American. Why do you think that our brethren across the diaspora have an issue with it?
So here's the issue, and this is what I like to call a solution in search of a problem. As I stated before, no one's ever stated, has articulated in any way, shape, or form on a macro level or micro level that Black people should not, in America, African Americans should not be proud of being African Americans, right? Part of this is rooted in the fact that we can't actually go after the entity that's responsible for our issues in America. So we're going to create a beef with someone who's a softer target, right? They argue that they're stealing the resources allocated for African Americans. Black immigrants make up only 8% of the immigrants brought into this country every year, right? And 8% is the largest amount in the past 5-6 years, 8%. And his thing is, there actually have been individuals who have reaped benefits from our struggles, right? One would be women, white women in particular. We talk about affirmative action, right? Who is the primary beneficiary of affirmative action? White women. Who was the actual, what entity or group was actually supposed to benefit from the creation of affirmative action when it was created under the LBJ administration? Black people, African Americans. So if you had a beef with someone actually reaping the benefits of our struggle, it would be white women, affirmative action. We could talk about, if you could take umbrage with this, peace, brother. Hope you could tap in and be part of the conversation. Same with you, Sister Shy. Is what? We're talking about the 14th Amendment. We're talking about equal protection clause, LGBTQ. There have been people who argue they have benefited more from the equal protection clause than, of course, African Americans. So there are groups that actually have been able to reap benefits from our struggle, but they haven't been immigrants, Black immigrants. So that's one of the issues I have here with it. They're making claims that are opposed to facts. And they're trying to create a problem. And a lot of this goes into this, like I said, the nominal concept of white nationalism, to where they will create a narrative that they're being victimized when they actually aren't, to take umbrage and issue with someone. Oh, I appreciate you, brother. I appreciate you. Hope you could tap in too, right? So this is something that we find with white nationalists. They will create a narrative that they're being victimized by a particular group of people who aren't doing anything to them, and then use it as an excuse to attack that group of people. So when she talks about why is this seen as some type of vitriol or hatred, it is, the reason why is because we see that, right? When you go on TikTok, when you go on YouTube, when you are in these Twitter spaces, which I haven't frequented, these individuals are speaking in a manner of African brothers and sisters, of West Indian brothers and sisters, that is extremely violent and rooted in hatred. I actually had a brother who I went to undergrad with. He posted an article that I wrote on Medium, and I think I shared that with you all, titled "I'm Blacker Than You: The Rise of the FBADOS." And they said, well, his last name is Lumumba. He should be talking about issues for Black Americans. And the guy said, well, he is an African American. Actually, I went to college with him. And then he said, he changed his name. And the sister said, well, he sold his he changed his name, so he sold his lineage. He sold his lineage. And so the brother said, well, hold on. So you're saying that he should be prouder to have a slave name rather than an African name? So we see that it's actually rooted in what Mr. K always says, Afrophobia. There's a hatred of things African. Well, we know this is an issue. Malcolm taught us about this. We know one of the reasons a lot of Black people don't celebrate Kwanzaa is because there's association and affiliation with things African. Because Kwanzaa is about celebrating the best of what it means to be African and human in the fullest sense, right? These are real issues that we have in our community, and we find that there are aspects of these movements and these concepts and ideas that are rooted in the vilification of African people, right? So once again, they will make arguments that are adverse to facts. Family, if you're watching, make sure you hit the subscribe and like button. Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. The link is in the description. I'm putting the link in the chat. Tap in and be part of the conversation. You're watching LumumbaSpeaks.com, a Black Empowerment Initiative where we believe we can gain a competitive advantage by always, always, always betting on Black. in conjunction with Beacon Network, the Pan-African social media extraordinaire, and the home of African Centered News and Information. Right? So these are issues that we find here. Nonsensical, adverse facts. They can't provide any examples to substantiate the claims that they're making. But when Dennis Sperling comes in, this is really when I would argue it takes a turn for the worse. Let's see here. Afrophobia, I need to start using that interchangeably in the lexicon along with anti-African and anti-Blackness. Facts, brother. Absolutely. Hopefully you can tap in. Absolutely. This is a real issue, right? Because as I stated, we saw this with the concept. And let me bring up that article that I wrote. And if you all aren't following me on Medium, shame on you. Please do. Right? You can go to medium.com, type in Dr. Bakari K. Lumumba, and I will come up. So we're going to stop the share very quickly, and then we're going to cite this article. Then we will get back to sharing. But I want to share this with you all. So I wrote this article back in July, titled "I'm Blacker Than You: The Rise of FBA and ADOS Movements." Right. So we get in here, and I talk about this concept and idea. They argue that Blackness is being, people wear Blackness as a costume. I find this argument to be specious at this position, as this position is averse to facts and belies the fact that FBA and ADOS movements emerged as a mutation of anti-Pan-African sentiment by individuals who at one point promoted Pan-Africanism for monetary gain until they found it no longer lucrative to do so, right? But I also argue that this is an example of powerless groups unable to effectively change the forces that oppress them, attacking other people similar to themselves, what we call manipulative deflection, right? So we see these nonsensical arguments coming up, surface level tropes, right? Who created hip hop? Who ruined the Essence Fest? So they arguing who created hip hop, in which what is most important is who owns and controls hip hop and who benefits from hip hop, who controls the industry, right? These are yes, Medium is a media platform, absolutely. These are the real questions that should be asked, right? Who ruined the Essence Fest, right? These are real issues that should be addressed. There are numerous talking heads, Afro Elite, Tariq Nasheed, Angry Man, who consistently engage in vile stereotyping of African and West Indian immigrants, while also engaging in baseless attacks on Pan-Africanism. Right, this argument they make that Black immigrants are trying to leech benefits from African Americans, while African Americans live in a country in which Black children are being shot down by the police, while people are dying from air pollution, where Flint, Michigan still does not have clean water, and where activists are being locked up for their political views. These are the challenges that the African American community is facing, that FBA ADOS wants to make Black immigrants the enemy. I would argue, make it make sense, right? This concept of resource deprivation and manipulation of both groups is rooted in, of course, a time-resistant strategy of divide and conquer, right? So these are some of the issues combined with the Aboriginal movement to gain numbers, also both rooted in a hate of Africa. Yes, I would agree. Individuals who are Aboriginal, they engage in a form of Afrophobia as well. There's a fear or hatred of Africa, of things African. So they're finding any way that they can to try to disengage from being what they actually are. So absolutely, you're cooking with fish grease there. So let's bring the video back up. All right. Then we get this conversation back started.
Well, let's first establish that they've already delineated from us. If you go to Jamaica and say, I'm a Jamaican, they say, no, yeah, Yankee man come down from Babylon. That's what they're going to say. If you go to...
But so here's the issue. That's not the issue of delineating. If you're not Jamaican, you're not Jamaican, right? I wouldn't go to Nigeria and say I'm Nigerian because I'm not. That's not the issue of delineating. It's simply an issue of nationality, right? But here's the thing. I've been to Jamrock. Right, and because I was knowledgeable of the history, a Pan-African ethos, being Black-minded, I was embraced with open arms. So something to, of course, consider there. So once again, we talk about surface level tropes. Surface level tropes.
If you go to Nigeria and say, hey, my DNA test says I'm Nigerian, say, no, my brother, you are not, you are a white man come from America. They're going to say they've already delineated. So the problem.
Surface level trope, once again, I've been to the continent. No one has ever said, I'm a white man coming from America. Right? So these are surface level tropes.
The problem is when we delineate, they lose resources. So when people become, and this is just general human behavior, and when people become accustomed to something that they're not entitled to, and you take it away from them, they call it hate. You see, and that's what they have been so used to coming and living under the umbrella of what we call Black America and reaping all the benefits that we have now, that we're saying, no, we're going to close up our umbrella and we're going to move somewhere else, and we're only going to allow people who actually fall within the category of foundational Black Americans to reap the benefit of it. Then now,
well, I would need to know what are the benefits that being an African American that we're providing. I would like to know. I mean, we live in a country. Once again, we live in a country right now which everyone tends to benefit from living in America, other than Black people. Right? This is one of the reasons why the father of Black nationalism, Martin Delaney, said that we aren't citizens, we're denizens. Right? This is why when Hurricane Katrina took place and our brothers and sisters were wading in the water, as one would say, right? They stated they called them refugees rather than citizens, right? Rather than survivors. So once again, making surface level tropes, surface level arguments that are, of course, adverse to facts. Right, and one of the brothers I saw on the comments on this video said, well, if you are going to delineate, just be consistent and make sure you're delineating from the white man. But once again, this is not only a form of cowardice. This also shows brothers and sisters, I shouldn't use the term brothers and sisters, but their lack of political maturity, right? The lack of political maturity, because anyone who's politically mature would understand the teachings of one Kwame Nkrumah, says that if we are vulgarly nationalistic, we'll be played against each other like pawns on a chessboard, right? But I to this day, I'm unaware of brothers and sisters from the continent or the Caribbean, Black immigrants, somehow reaping benefits from some so-called being associated with me. I'm just not aware of that in any way, shape, or form. So once again, making claims that are adverse to facts, surface level arguments, right, rather than attacking the entity that is actually responsible for the issues that we face here in America.
They're angry because now they're going to have to deal with the system of white survivalism all themselves. They're no longer going to be able to say, oh, I'm Black American. No, you're going to have to say, I'm an immigrant and I'm Black. Can you imagine what they're going to have to deal with?
Once again, Mr. K, how you doing? Provide an example of a brother or sister from the continent of the Caribbean claim that they were African American. So like I said, this is the problem when I talk about creating a solution in search of a problem. They are making an argument that doesn't exist. Provide one example of an African immigrant or a West Indian immigrant claiming that they were African American to get some kind of benefits. I just need one. They're making an argument that doesn't exist. One, because they're politically immature. They're ideologically, they have a nebulous ideological frame of reference, right? So 1 minute they're progressive, the next minute they're conservative. 1 minute they're actually arguing we need to coalesce as Black people. The next minute, no, we got to delineate. It goes in waves, right? It's almost like they're a Dow Jones. The other issue here that I really have a problem with is throughout this entire conversation, they're making claims without being able to substantiate them. That is a major issue for me. I even do that with my own parents. I say, listen, you say something, Mom, Dad, you're gonna have to be to prove it. You got to back it up, provide an example to substantiate. Of course, this comes from my academic training as a scholar, but when you're making these type of claims, right, that are inflammatory in nature, right, you're saying, no, you can't claim that you're a Black American. Give an example of someone claiming that they were an African American, right? But they seem to be unable to do it.
Not only are you Black, but now you're an immigrant. So you're going to get the immigrant treatment and you're going to get the Black treatment all at once. But the problem is they don't necessarily have any standing to say anything about it. So, and I've gone through this over and over again. Black Americans or foundational Black Americans are uniquely presented as the moral compass in this country. We are the only group of people who came to this country not as immigrants, but as imports against our will. So because of that, there's nobody that can tell us.
And that is very true. African Americans are the only group of people to come to this country and involuntarily. This is very true. But a moral compass means nothing. We live in a country, we live in a world in which power matters, right? In which might is right. Or you have all the morality in the world, is it going to do you any good, right? We talk about the Reverend Dr. King, and we know you can't mention Dr. King when I mentioned Coretta Scott King, but Dr. King stated after meeting with the leaders of Montgomery, Alabama, before they started the course of Montgomery Improvement Association and created the bus boycott. After that meeting, he said, this is not an issue of morality, this is an issue of power. So I would argue that much of this argument, the conversation is off base. You have two individuals who are in the echo chamber, really talking about issues that they really know nothing about.
Rightfully, you got to go back. You have an option to go back home. No, because we didn't have an option to come here. And I'm going to say something that also ticked off many of my subscribers. We were sold by our so-called African brothers and sisters for profit. In fact, that business of slave trade had been going on for 1,600 years before the first European got involved. And when they start saying things like, so
we're going to stop it right here, because once again, he's making claims that are surface level. Anyone who's done a deep dive on the history of the transatlantic slave trade, and I had to take classes on this subject matter, I have a laundry list of literature on the transatlantic slave trade behind me to my right. Maybe your left, but my right. As Dr. John Henry Clark said, brothers and sisters or African people were sold for bric-a-brac, miscellaneous items of little to no worth. The second issue is, during that time, there was not a concept of race, right? So it wasn't, okay, you're a Black person, I'm a Black person, we need to work together. Individuals identified based on nationality and based on ethnicity, right? He talks about the history of, he's going to get into a bit about the Arab slave trade, which had a long history of anti-Black racism. Many scholars argue, particularly Dr. James Sweet at University of Wisconsin, that this is where Europeans learned the concept of chattel enslavement from, right? So he has some information, but he's not able to do a deep dive, or he may know this information, but is engaging in what we like to argue is he's lying by omission to help promote his idea, his point, right? So let's see, remember Lumumba, this meaning Dennis Sperling is the same man who thinks he can take a legal case to Africa to sue them for reparations for slavery, right? And so, yes, so hope you can tap in. Brother Bawana, hope you can tap in. Haven't heard from you in a while. But yes, really what this is about is trying to inch closer to whiteness, right? Trying to place themselves in proximity to whiteness. And there's a belief that if we place ourselves in proximity to whiteness, if we deny our African ancestry, if we deny embracing our African heritage and the cultural aspects of Africa, the African aspects of African American culture, that somehow we will be able to reap the benefits of our so-called American citizenship. We know after being here for over 400 years that that's not a reality, but this is where this is coming from, right? We tried their argument, we tried the Black power thing, we tried the Pan-African thing, we're still in the same position, right? We're going back, because Tariq Nasheed, when he started creating all these Black consciousness videos, I was still an undergraduate. We tried that, we still don't got any rights, so now we're going to try this, now make this argument that we are closer to whiteness, right, rather than Africanity. So that's what this is coming from. He is also accusing Africa of the transatlantic slave trade, which is hilarious and of course ahistorical. We know that African people did not create the transatlantic slave trade, nor did we create the trans-Saharan slave trade, right? So once again, this is someone who's making an argument on the surface level. He's not able to provide the necessary and needed nuance. And so as a result, someone who is uneducated about these particular issues can be easily manipulated and fall into this concept of FBA or delineating that is rooted in a very vile and vile form of course, Afrophobia. So let me bring this back up.
They didn't know what type of slavery it was going to be as bad as it was. Slave trade to the East was so bad that they don't even exist anymore. And the reason being is because, you know, they demasculated the men. And when children were conceived by the Arab, or children were sired by the Arab enslavers, they would oftentimes physically remove those children from those African mothers, literally while she was pregnant. This is how cruel it was. So when you say that Africans didn't know how it was, that's just the empirical evidence and the historical accounts say otherwise. In fact, even when we begin to talk about the transatlantic slave trade, there were people who participated in the transatlantic slave trade who were then made slaves, were enslaved, got their freedom, and went right back to being slaves, participating in this horrible event. Now
that is true. An example of that would be in Dahomey, what is now known as Benin, right? In Dahomey, the law was that you could not enslave someone who is Dahomean, right? So that is true. Context would matter. That is not true for all Black African people who were ensnared by the transatlantic slave trade, but that was true for individuals in Dahomey. And I actually have some literature on that particular topic. You see, yeah, this book here, Rita, the social. The social. Rita, the social history of a West African slave import, 1727 to 1892, by Robin Law. This book was written on Howard University Press, and in this text, it discusses that particular issue, right? So he's on point there. But like I said, in the Butter Bawana said, can he provide some sources for his generalities? Ain't he an attorney? He works with case law, yes. And so that's one of the major issues, right? And what we tend to find is they would just simply regurgitate what they've heard or what they've been told, right? That tends to be the norm. So something to consider when we're pushing back against a lot of the claims that are being made. So Lumumba, he basically talks about Africa like continental village where all African ethnics all know each other regardless of how large the land mass of Africa is. Yes, very true, very true. Let's finish this off. We got like a minute left.
I'm not saying that, you know, most people, most cultures on this planet had slaves. When we look at Genghis Khan, he was a horrible man. Horrible. I mean, he's fathered millions of children. There are millions of people who've been fathered by this small Asian man. And there's been, you know, even on the continent, you know, Shaka Zulu himself, he was pretty rough on people, you know, in his consolidation of what we call South Africa. The Europeans, the French fought the Vikings fought the British, what we call the English fought the Vikings, and all four of the main kingdoms in what we call England fought each other. So there's been a lot of unalivement throughout history. But when we talk about what Africans did, and when we talk about hate, when we talk about who's delineated, they've already delineated from us. And so why is it now that you have an issue with us delineating? We accept you at your offer, and we will now delineate from you. But again, the whole point and reason why is because they are no longer able to reap the benefit of what was something unearned gains that they had, and that hiding under the umbrella of foundational Black Americans.
Well, my issue is, what benefits is he talking about? What were they getting by so-called cosplaying as African Americans? They don't provide any examples of this. I can recall there was an article that came out about a young an Indian man who was accepted into medical school, and he actually had cosplayed as an African American, cut his hair, went to the tennis salon, got darker skin. He used a pseudonym that was African American in nature. All right, so there's examples of this, but these examples don't come from African and West Indian immigrants. So like I said, it's rooted in Afrophobia. It's human nature to mimic the people you surround yourself with. Put Dennis Sterling in Nigeria for a week. He'll be grubbing on fufu and eagle soup like he lived his entire life. Right. Remember that. Yes, absolutely. So once again, the claims they're making are specious, to say the least.
Because of our historical tragedies, we're the only ones in this country who have standing to correct this country when it's off its moral compass. And now that we've decided to have a seat, and in fact, I would argue that foundational Black Americans have decided to take a whole
Right. So that's where the white nationalism came in. Right. Anyone who has a understanding of politics, particularly in America, white people are pushing deportation not because they are claiming that Black people are being replaced here in America. They're pushing deportation because they have an issue with the coloring of America. They know that by 2050, and some numbers even argue, or studies even argue, 2040, they will become what? A minority in this country, what they call a majority minority, right? And as a result, they're pushing this concept and idea of replacement theory, right? I wrote an article on that on Medium as well. So this is really what's going on here. Also, they claim Africans taking resources from African Americans, but never specify the actual resources. Exactly. This is what I'm saying. Okay, well, what resources are you talking about? It's extremely frustrating for me when I know someone is being disingenuous, right? It's extremely frustrating. But as I said, family, I sent them an email. I sent them, both of them, emails, message them on Instagram, Twitter, whatever. So hopefully they will respond back. But once again, this is something that's being promoted. Tariq Nasheed, Afro Elite, Angry Man, they're all making these arguments. They all say the same thing, but they never say, okay, what resources are you referring to? Right? Can you provide me an example of someone claiming that they were African American, they really weren't, when they actually weren't, and they got something as a result of that? Because we've been here our whole life, and we ain't never got shit for being an African American. So they're making claims that are those the facts. Lumumba, he basically romanticizing the American dream. He wants to see the American gangsterism, right? So I'm going to read an excerpt from this book, family, right? And it talks about the issue that he spoke to, right? It is tempting to assume an explanation and by implication, extenuation of the willingness of Africans to sell slaves into the Atlantic trade. They were ignorant of what was involved, what this involved. In Ouida, however, and within the Dahomean ruling elite, more generally, it seems clear that there must have been an informed understanding of where it was that slaves were sent and what fate awaited them when they got there. There were Dahomean officials who had been to America and to Europe. For example, specifically Dahomey, what is now present-day Benin, and on diplomatic missions and return to tell the tale. Some have even themselves experienced slavery in the Americas. One example is Adomo Tomo, originally a linguist in the English factory at Jakin. He was sent by Aja as an interpreter on a mission to England in 1726, before initially sold into slavery in Maryland, USA, where he spent around 5 years before being liberated to complete his journey to England and to return to Dahomey in 1732. Another was the Royal Prince Owuku, alias Dom Geronimo, a leading figure in the commercial establishment of Ouida in the 1780s, who had spent no fewer than 24 years as a slave in Brazil before being redeemed and repatriated to Dahomey. The slave trade was understood in Dahomey to raise moral issues, but only in relation to defining rules within which it should operate, and especially in regard to whom it was considered acceptable to enslave and sell, rather than putting in question the legitimacy of the trade itself, in which, of course, the Dahomean attitudes were essentially similar to those of Europeans. Prior to the emergence of the abolitionist movement in the 18th century in Dahomey tradition, one of the fundamental laws attributed to the founder, King Rebaja, in the 17th century prohibited the sale of slaves of anyone born within the kingdom, contravention being a capital offense. In principle, this rule was enforced so rigorously as to prohibit the sale of even of female captives who became pregnant while in transit through Dahomey, right? But the norm for individuals who were being captured and sent is that what they believe that Europeans were cannibals. That is consistent throughout all of the historical literature that one would, of course, read. Let's see here. It says, Dr. Lumumba, I just see it as entertainment or a cash out grab, seek real employment. Right, Dr. Lumumba, they just giving you content for your next book, brother. Appreciate it, right? Yeah, it's basically like watching Jerry Springer and WWE with these folks, yes. Kevin, I just enjoy how these guys inventing new tactics to stretch out the script. Yeah, that's really what it's about as well. I finally added the book, The African American Experience from 1400 to the Present by Joseph E. Holloway. I have that book as well. It's back in my parents' house, but I have that book as well. So yeah, these are some of the issues. I think Joseph E. Holloway even edited the book Africanisms and African American Culture as well. I have that book, but it's at my folks' house. But yeah, so these are some of the issues that we find, right? Where they're making claims, but they can't substantiate the claims. They're receiving resources or benefits, but they can't tell you what the resources or benefits are, right? And so this is part of really the new grip. Hey, we're going to just parrot the same narrative. We're going to flood Black YouTube. And then, of course, as a result, we're able to make money out of it. So these are things that we need to be cognizant of. I always tell people, whenever you're having a conversation with anyone, you ask them where did they get their information, and you ask them to provide an example to substantiate the claim that they're making. Oftentimes, unless you're talking to someone who is well-schooled, well-tutored, or well-read on the subject matter, they won't be able to do that, right? So this is rooted in, of course, Afrophobia. This is rooted in, of course, self-hatred. This is rooted in a form of really what we would like to call a Americanized version of tribalism, African Americanized form of tribalism. But it's also rooted in, of course, resource deprivation. There is a fear that there are scarce resources, and as a result, they view other people who may gain access to whatever those resources are as being a threat. But as I said before, Black immigrants make up only 8% of immigrants that come to America every year. 8%. I just checked that number. That was the last number provided as of September of this year. So if you have an issue with immigrants coming to America, it wouldn't be Black people, right? It would be individuals from Latin America, Hispanics, and then, of course, people from Asia and, of course, Europe. But once again, that's not an easy group to attack. So they're going to attack the softest target. But family, the link is in the description. Link is in the chat. Tap in. Be part of the conversation. You can be a blessing to the show via Cash App and, of course, Super Chat and Venmo. Definitely want to hear what you all have to say. Your thoughts on, of course, me breaking down the nonsensical concept of delineation, arguing they've already delineated from us. No one has. I've been to the continent. I've been to the Caribbean on several occasions. No one is saying, listen, we're going to identify as Jamaican so that we provide a very clear a very clear distinction between ourselves and African Americans. People aren't thinking like that on the continent. People aren't thinking like that in the Caribbean. I know because I've been there on several occasions. That is just not the case at all, right? I'm the director of a Black Culture Center. We have the Nigerian Student Association. We have the East African Student Association. There are members, there are African Americans on the executive boards of both of these organizations, right? That's just not the way individuals are moving. But once again, they're making claims that adverse to facts, and they aren't even able to substantiate these claims. In the book, A History of Slave Resistance in the United States by Joseph E. Holloway, identifies the incidents of resistance on African soil that sabotaged the human trafficking on slave ships. Yes, very true, very true, very true. Sister Shy, I appreciate your super chat. Oh yes, please, 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 sister, can you share with us? Just be in the chat, or you can type in and be part of the conversation that you know you do not have the cam up. Why did you unsubscribe from the Crimson Curious channel? If you could please share that with us. The link is in the description. The link is in the chat. I want to know. You know you do not have the cam up. You know you can use, of course, a pseudonym. Why did you unsubscribe from Crimson Curious Show? I second what Dr. Lumumba is saying. I live in the Caribbean. Delineation is not on our agenda. Facts, I have a neighbor who is from Gabon. He ain't never said no stupid shit like that to me. Matter of fact, I was walking in my building. He was at the door. Hey, brother, how you doing? We ended up having a conversation. I said, man, you have an accent when you're from? He says, Gabon. A week later, he invited me over his house, well, you know, their home to have dinner with him and his children. And then there was a brother from Senegal there. We ended up getting together. And we're like, man, they're just happy to meet each other, and we're able to talk and, you know, really support each other. Like, that is not an agenda. So like I said, they're able to make these claims of people who just aren't knowledgeable. Like I said, I've been to the continent. I've been to the Caribbean on several occasions. I'm always in community with brothers and sisters from different parts of the world, right? That is not an agenda. People don't even think like that over there, right? So this brother, they're being disingenuous, right? And so we all know, as Kwame Nkrumah said, we are vocally nationalistic, you're going to have some issues. How is Brenda Gail Plummer's books going? So, good question. I actually started reading one of her books, and I just I got bogged down with work. But I didn't reach out to her, and she's going to be on one of our lunch and learns next semester. So we actually will be able to interview her about that particular book that you shared, well, one of the books that you shared with me. So I definitely want to, say I give thanks for that. I appreciate that because it is needed and necessary. But yes, we're going to be interviewing her for our lunch and learn coming up next semester. Let me see if I can pull up the actual time. The actual date that we're going to be interviewing her. Let's see here. We go to her live. And let's see here. Yes, it's In Search of Power, African Americans in the Era of Decolonization. Right, yes. So we're going to be interviewing her about that particular book, and that's going to be on March 18th. March 18th. Peace out, brother. Next time for sure, no doubt. Yes. So we'll be interviewing her on March 18th regarding that book. So she's doing a deep dive into the actual history and really, pushing back against that prevaricating narrative that Pan-Africanism was one-sided. We hear that a lot. Pan-Africanism was one-sided. We know that is not the case whatsoever. Anyone who has a working knowledge of, course, history would know that. So this is a great question from Sister Chantel Talk. Chantel, I hope you could tap in. I'm going to put the link in the chat. I definitely want to hear from you. And just let you know, sister, you do not have to cam up, and you can use a pseudonym to be part of the conversation. But we'd love to hear from you regarding your perspective on, of course, delineation. Let's see here. Okay, it's also important to read her Rising Wind book, which complements the In Search of Power. Okay. I'm first generation. I grew up among immigrant Blacks and Black Americans, all living among each other with one love. So what part of the country did you grow up in? I'm presuming maybe the East Coast, right? But let me know what part of the country you grew up in, melanated goddess. So yeah, tap in, family. The link is in the description. The link is in the chat. We can have a great conversation. Just kind of want to break down the ground rules here at Lumumba Speaks and People on Network when we have these courageous conversations. Okay, Brooklyn, no doubt. Brother Dwayne Omawale, the resident historian here at LumumbaSpeaks.com. He's in queue. I'm gonna be bringing in him momentarily. My Pan-African big brother. I like to keep it brolic in the gym, but this brother keeps it brolic in the library. And so I definitely, I'm always humbled when he's able to make an appearance here at, of course, Lumumba Speaks and People on Network. So very quickly, family, the ground rules. One, when we're talking about the ground rules for Lumumba Speaks, it's very simple. You cannot use racial epithets or epithets of any kind, right? This is a space of Black empowerment. We believe in 3 N's of Black power, self-respect, self-defense, and self-determination. So no epithets of any kind are allowed. Number 2, you are entitled to an opinion, but you cannot make a claim that is averse to facts. Why is that? This is my platform. I am a scholar, and what takes place on my platform is a representation of yours truly. So if you make a claim that you believe LeBron James is the greatest basketball player ever, no problem. If you state he's the greatest basketball player because Michael Jordan only won 3 championships, that's a claim that is averse to facts, right? Also, want to make sure, once again, family, that you attack the argument and not the person. We believe in facts over feelings. You attack the argument, not the person. We don't do straw mans. We don't do ad hominems. So that is very good. So Sister Chantel, if you could simply cam up in queue, I just need to make sure that you're not trolling, right? And then you could, once you cam up in queue, I know that you're not trolling. You could turn your camera off now. We'll let you into the line. But I just need you to cam up in queue so that I know that you're not trolling. Okay, so you just left, so hopefully you can tap back in. I just need you to cam up in queue, then you can turn your camera off, and we will bring you back into the line. Brother Dwayne Omawale, the man, the myth, the legend. Right, your favorite Pan-Africanist, your favorite historian. And real quick, family, as many of you may be aware, I posted on the channel and all my social media. I am now a published author, right? I wrote my first book, The Red, Black, and Green Vows. Views on Race, Power, and Society, Volume 1. And I have to give flowers, right? Because Brother Dwayne was the one who pushed me. what you said you would not be camming up. Okay, well, no, you don't need to cam up on the live. I just need to make sure that you're not trolling, right, in queue. But so if we're good, you're not trolling, you can come back in. You do not have to cam up, and we can get you to be part of the live, sister. So you don't have to worry about camming up. So please come tap back in, and you will be part of the, of course, the live. Go ahead, Brother Dwayne.
Yeah, so forgive me. I'm just I'm jumping in. I don't even really know what it is that you've been discussing. I just, like I said, I don't know if you got my message. I was finishing up doing some work.
Oh no, I didn't get your message.
So yeah, I was in a meeting and I was just doing some work, but I saw you doing it live, so I said let me jump in and see what it's about. So I see the topic is delineation, but I don't know precisely where you are in the conversation.
Yes, so I did a response video to Crimson Cure and Dennis Sterling arguing and pushing for this concept of delineation, right? They made the argument, some prevaricating arguments regarding their belief that African Americans Black immigrants were receiving resources by associating themselves or acting as if they were African Americans or claiming to be Black Americans, right? But they provided no examples to substantiate this, right? They didn't provide any examples of what these resources actually were, right? Or an example of someone cosplaying as an African American. I provided examples of individuals cosplaying as Black, as African Americans, but these individuals weren't Black. The guy was actually Indian, and he did this to get into medical school, right? So nonsensical, making a number of claims, that reverse the facts, really engaging in a nominal form of white nationalism, Afrophobia, and of course a solution in search of a problem. I even cited, of course, one of my article in which I cited some of your literature where you talked about we're facing issues in which Black children are being killed by the police. Flint doesn't have clean drinking water. Political activists are being targeted and of course incarcerated. And they want to say that the actual enemy are Black people from other countries, even though only 8% of the immigrants that come into this country every year are Black.
Okay, so yes, it's the typical FBA arguments, and
yes.
But the thing is, it's not even unique to FBA. We find this throughout the African world. For example, I'm sure you're aware of what's happening in South Africa, where they've been targeting immigrants coming in there, particularly people from countries like Zimbabwe, Nigeria. We even find a similar issue in certain parts of the Caribbean as well, where there's a great deal of hostility towards immigrants, and always comes from the perspective of blaming Black people from other countries for the problems that you're facing. And typically, it's a way to actually avoid addressing the proper issue, because it's much easier to target people who are immigrants, target people who don't have real political or economic power, than it is to actually address the issues and address the people who are in positions of power. And typically, what we find across the board, whether we're talking about Africans in the United States, in South Africa, or the Caribbean, part of the issue is also the failure of political leadership. That when you have a population that's struggling, you have political leaders who have essentially abandoned the people, they're not really fighting for the people. It creates a situation where the people will target, go after an easy target, they'll go after immigrants, because what else do? They have political leadership that's not representing them, and rather than fighting that political leadership, rather than fighting white supremacy, foreign domination of African people, they go after an easy target, and very often it is Black immigrants. But the problem with that is it doesn't actually address anything, because FBA, it's been around for a few years now. FBA, AUS, these groups have been around for several years. Can you think of one substantial issue in the Black community that they've managed to resolve in the several years that they've been in existence?
No, I can't.
So that's the problem with these movements. And it's the same thing in South Africa, that the groups in South Africa will target these immigrants. When it comes to election time, it's still the same ANC that gets elected, and still the same ANC that's empowered. So to me, it would make more sense actually focusing on transforming the politics of where you live, transforming your situation, rather than continuing to do the same thing and just blaming immigrants. It doesn't work in South Africa, it doesn't work in America. And like I said, even Caribbean countries that have had these problems, it doesn't work there either. So and here's the irony with FBA, because many of them tend to be very anti-Pan-Africanist, but their mentality is global among African people, and that's why I keep going back to the examples in Africa and the Caribbean, that essentially African people are facing the same problems or variations of the same problems where we are across the world. So
Right.
FBA and US, these groups, they're a particular manifestation of that in America, but we find different manifestations in the Caribbean and in Africa, because as I keep pointing out, what we do as a people is those of us who aren't really in the process of actually addressing the issues of actually going after the people who are in positions of power, we'll go after the easy targets like the immigrants. And as you know, you've always pointed out, particularly with what Tariq does, a lot of it is they're just trying to create an issue to sell the solution as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. So very quickly, Sister Talk, Chantel Talk, you could chime in. You do not have the cam up. You may have misinterpreted what I said, but you do not have the cam up. I want you to come in and be part of the conversation. We do not like to operate in an echo chamber. Sister Shy, also, Sister, I need you to share with me why you unsubscribed from Crimson Fury's channel. In the UK, Caribbeans have established the government distinction of culture, meaning they made the government recognize Caribbeans and Africans are not the same. Okay. Sean, I live in the UK. There's been a history of English people attacking Irish and German immigrants when their tough times are going on. Yes, and that's why I said that a lot of this is rooted in resource deprivation. There's a fear that there's a lack of resources, so they attack individuals of different ethnic identities or different nationalities, particularly immigrants, because they're the softest target. Yeah. But it doesn't change the social, political, and economic reality or conditions that we live under. And this is something that we find, unfortunately, was a tried and true method, not only here in the Americas, when they were seeking to quell slave revolts, and there were a number of practices that one used to try to quell slave revolts, but another was, of course, divide and conquer. But one of those was divide and conquer. Absolutely. So these are issues that we're facing, but we have to think, broader, have a higher level of political understanding to know that this does not help us solve our problems.
And to me, it also seems redundant because if you're an African American, you already have a particular cultural and national identity.
Right.
So that's the other issue as well that I don't really quite understand about the movement. And again, it goes back to the issue of just creating a problem to sell the solution, that African Americans have always had a distinct identity when compared to the rest of the diaspora. So particularly with FBA, I think what Tariq Nasheed does is he creates this identity, and then as we've spoken about this before, he'll sell T-shirts and the flags and the DVDs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, solution search for problem. So, Sister Talk, please tap into the conversation. When men of one nation think it's okay to go run other men's established countries to eat up their resources, that's clearly going to be a problem. Can you please provide an example to the point the point that you're making? Please, please provide an example. Sister Shy, maybe I just didn't see the comment, so if you could post that, it'd be greatly appreciated. Why can't Africans build up their own land? What's the issue? So this is a great question, and I'm going to attempt to answer this, but I already know that Dwayne could do better than I. But so when we talk about anti-Black racism is global in nature. When we talk about colonialism, right, we understand that there was a push for decolonization during the time that Black people here in America, in the West, here in America, were fighting for civil rights and, of course, Black power in the United States and decolonization in the Caribbean. What European powers realized is that it was better for them to engage in continuing the exploitation of raw materials under what was known as neocolonialism, right? So many African nation states have what many scholars call flag independence, right? But the reality of the situation is these African heads of state, if they do not capitulate to the demands of the West, they will be assassinated, they will put a puppet in place, and then it will be business as usual. So we have to understand that. We could talk about the example of Nkrumah, and there being a CIA coup to remove Nkrumah from office. The CIA, along with the United Nations and the United States government, the British and the Belgian government, colluding to assassinate one Patrice Lumumba. We talk about the French-backed coup of removing Thomas Sankara from office, right? There have been numerous coups on the continent to disrupt African economies and prevent them from being able to build up, because if they were actually able to build solid economies, what would happen is Europeans would not have the power to come in and rape and pillage these countries of their natural resources. like they've been doing for several centuries. So we have to understand that, and the same thing took place here in the Black community, right? When we began to coalesce, we created Black Wall Street, right? When we started becoming businessmen and businesswomen and created institutions, having strong families, what the French told you they do? We're going to create an ideal race relations. Fuck this motherfucking concept of reconstruction. It's a problem because now you all are empowering yourselves, and we just can't run through here like you're a girl with low self-esteem, or we a hot knife through butter. So guess what takes place? We get through that. Guess what takes place as a result? We had the Civil Rights Black Power movement. Well, we're going to create COINTELPRO. We're going to start creating the situations where you start fighting each other rather than fighting us. Same thing happens on the continent. Same thing happens in the Caribbean. These issues are germane to Black people, irrespective of where we are in the world. Right? They talk about why they running from the continent of the Caribbean to come here. Same reason why we left during the Great Migration. It came north and west. People do that when they're looking for better opportunities. But here's my issue. If you have a problem with brothers and sisters coming here, why don't you got no problem with no Europeans coming here? Why don't you got no problem with Asians coming here? Because you don't have the social, political, economic power or clout to be able to what? Attack them, because if you do, they could shut your Black ass down. That's the reason why. You can't run that small time game on me. I know what's up. Brother Dwayne.
You said everything that I was going to say. Because
I was a bit harsher.
Yeah. Because I mean, that was going to be my response. You know, the Africans can't build up on the continent for the same reason African Americans can't build up communities here. And as you pointed out, Black Wall Street, we saw what happened with Black Wall Street, and I think that's why having a Pan-African perspective is so important. Because
real quick, she says so. We use the term African Americans here at Lumumba Speaks. Well, welcoming to Africans. At first, they didn't want to gather us. Let's be honest. So let's be honest, because I'm an African American. I am well versed in Pan-Africanism. Provide an example to substantiate that, because I know different. I know
it's historically accurate, because Brother Lumumba, you and I, we've been to the continent, so we know the reception that Africans from the diaspora receive.
I know better.
But even
I know from my own personal anecdotal experience and from my scholarship, I have a freaking PhD, that what you're saying is adverse to facts. I know it's adverse to facts, and I can provide some examples. We could talk about during the Civil Rights Black Power movement, there were African. What's the term that you want to use? Members that are members of government.
Officials.
Officials who came to what? The United States. They witnessed Jim Crow and made their governments aware of this, and their governments went and complained to the United States, if you want to trade with us, you can't be treating Black people like this here in America. These are facts that are able to be substantiated. Right? You talk about this prevaricating narrative of Pan-Africanism being one-sided, but no one talks about the fact that in Haiti, when they, in January 1st, 1804, when then Emperor Jean-Jacques Dessalines announced and declared their independence from France, he said in that speech that every Black person in the Western Hemisphere was a Haitian citizen. And he provided in several Haitian presidential administrations after Dessalines' assassination, provided resources, actual capital for the housing and relocation of African Americans, and the tens of thousands, over 10,000 African Americans left the United States and came to Haiti and settled on Port-au-Prince at the behest of one Bishop James T. Holly. Know your history. We know that Henry Christophe, when he was king of Haiti, he actually was sending fleets of Haitian warships in the high seas to do what? To combat the transatlantic slave trade, where they were able to capture European slavery vessels and then free those brothers and sisters and have them settle in Haiti. So once again, you could tap in and be part of the conversation, but if you come on my show, you better be spitting some facts. Right? You could be whatever you want to be. Right? I'm an African American. We know the term African American has been in use since the 1700s. Right? I know the history. We also know that T. Thomas Fortune, created the Afro-American organization in 1892. So this concept and idea that the African American only started in the 1980s because of Jesse Jackson is once again a historical in the first place.
But here's my problem with that, though. If you're not an African or you're not an African American, why would you expect Africans to accept you then? If you are already making the argument that you're not an African, why would you even care whether or not Africans accept you? Because you're already coming from a position that you're not African.
Right. Absolutely. Well, once again, you said Africans have land. True Black American freedmen don't have land. I don't understand. What does that have to do with what we're talking about? African Americans don't have land because we are behind enemy lines.
But we just mentioned Black Wall Street. So, I mean, there are Black communities where Black people in America can actually build the communities, establish businesses and institutions.
Right. And they were destroyed by white supremacists, not by Africans or West Indian immigrants. Right? When we talk about retrenchment initiatives, particularly via the law, right? After civil rights, we talk about, and I wrote an article about this, retrenchment initiatives. This is what happens whenever there's real or perceived Black progress. It's followed by what? Racial retrenchment. Post Reconstruction, it was followed by what? The nadir race relations. Post civil rights Black power, it was followed by what? The law and order, where we saw a precipitous rise in the incarceration rate of African Americans. Right prior to the civil rights Black power movement, white people were the primary demographic in the penal system. Afterwards, it became Black people. Barack Obama becomes president. Once again, real or imagined progress. We find what? The rise of white nationalist hate groups and vigilante, good, I can't talk this evening.
Vigilante
violence and extrajudicial killings of African Americans. Black immigrants aren't doing these things to us. White supremacists are. Black immigrants aren't promoting miseducation in the schools. Right, let's see here. We welcome Africans and they refuse our gathering, and now we are refusing their gathering, which is only due to this current administration. So once again, you're making claims. Can you provide some examples of African Americans accepting African people here in America in they were budding overtures? Can you provide an example? Because like I said, what happens is, once again, can you provide some examples to substantiate the claims that you're making? Please tap in, sister. The link is in the description. The link is in the chat. You are making claims. Cool, you can make a claim. But on this platform, you have to substantiate those claims. I just need an example. Just provide one. One example to substantiate that when we put our hand out to work with brothers and sisters from the continent, they were buffed our overture. I could give an example showing that it isn't true. When we talk about Queen Mother Assata Shakur, right? Queen Mother Assata Shakur talks about in her autobiography, she was in college. She connected with some brothers and sisters from the continent. I think she was going to Columbia University. And they came over her house to pick her up, and they was going to go out, like have a night on the town. And they came into her home, and she said her house was a clutter, right? It was a mess. And they said, hold on, sister, like if your house looks this way, we can only imagine what your mind is like, the condition your mind is in. They said we didn't got to go out. We were ordering some food and help you organize your apartment. And she said when she sat down with those brothers and sisters, she realized how brainwashed she had been by American media and propaganda. She said they knew everything about the Vietnam War, the history. She said they thought they were from the country. They knew the history. And so she said she was able to coalesce and work with them to improve not only her personal condition, but the conditions of the community as well. Right? So I'm providing actual examples. You don't believe me, you can read her memoir yourself. Right? But once again, these are claims that are being made by individuals, but they are unable to provide examples to substantiate these claims. So that is my issue and concern. Once again, family, link is in the description, links in the chat. You're watching on themovementspeaks.com. Black Empowerment Initiative, where we believe we can gain a competitive advantage by always betting on Black in conjunction with Beacon Network. And of course, Sister Shy, please tell me, why did you unsubscribe? I didn't see the comment in the chat. Why did you unsubscribe? You know, sister, you can tap in, be part of the conversation. I'm going to put the link in as well. So, frame the most organized people on earth, but claim they taught a Black woman how to be clean. Well, one, that's not what I said. So now you are, of course, misrepresenting the argument that I made. This also will be an example of Afrophobia or xenophobia. You're claiming that all African people are unorganized. That in itself is problematic, and you're stereotyping an entire group of people. So we don't do that here. Like I said before, we don't attack groups of people, particularly Black people, right? But once again, you are really showing your Afrophobia here. Now that the African immigrants are over here calling themselves African Americans, we need a new name to distinguish ourselves like freedmen. Well, Natural Moments, tap in, be part of the conversation. Can you give an example of a African immigrant calling themselves African American? Because I'm familiar with the actual language that you use, and the term is actually called that's being used as American African. not African American. So please,
Continental African.
I'm sorry?
Continental African as
Or
well.
continental, right? So if you could provide an example to substantiate the claim that you're making, that would be greatly appreciated, right? Because once again, I am well versed in this literature, went to school for this subject matter, and I've yet to find an example of an immigrant calling themselves an African American. But the second issue would be, what benefit would you get from calling yourself a freedman? Because we don't get any benefits being African Americans living in this country. So what benefit are you going to get from calling yourself a freedman? Right? So that would be a question that I'm asking, and you are more than free to answer.
Yeah, especially since we're already free, because freedman was a legal status for enslaved Africans that had gained the freedom.
Right.
So I mean, at this point, it seems somewhat redundant to use that as the label when we've been free for several generations now.
Right. Absolutely. So
and also it's funny because it also wouldn't work from the standpoint, and I've seen FBA use this argument, and they don't realize that slavery happened all throughout the Americas. So right. African Americans weren't only freedmen. You have freedmen in the Caribbean and South America as well.
Absolutely. I remember I did a reaction video where a sister was talking about what Black women, African American women, are the only women who suffered the indignity of enslavement. And I said, well, that's not true at all. Like, you see, I said, and I mentioned I said, this is why they typically, when individuals have conversations, they make sure they have conversations with individuals who aren't able to challenge them intellectually. Because the brother, he literally shut up. He wasn't able to provide a rebuttal and say, well, what about Brazil? What about Jamaica? What about Haiti? Right? What about in Cuba? What about throughout the depth, decadence, and dysphoria of the Western world? Right? So most people are unaware of the history, and so that's when people are able to dominate those conversations.
You know, the sad part about that, that's not even foreign history. That's also part of the African American experience, because a lot of enslaved Africans actually came to the Caribbean first, and some of them were dropped off there before the ships came to North America. So it's not even
exactly what we homicide.
Yeah. So it's interconnected. There's a direct connection. It's not that's a case where this is completely foreign history that's not connected to the African American experience.
Okay, so she says, Sister Shy says, I'm tired of all the drama, and it was something she was fond of that I did not appreciate it. That is all I would say. Maybe I will resubscribe later. Right? So tired of the drama. Okay, got you. Overstood. Okay, forcing the government to Pan-African King. What's the word, brother? Forcing the government to recognize its sanction of culture.
Hey, what's going on, man? I apologize. Let me mute the YouTube in the background, and then I'll hop in it real quick.
Okay, no problem.
I apologize.
No problem. Yeah. So, and if anyone wants to speak to this, you go right ahead. But I would argue, once again, these are doing something like that doesn't help address the issues of brothers who are living in the UK. Right, but like I said, as we stated before, this is something, unfortunately, that we focus on these type of issues rather than issues that are substantial in nature, right? I live in the DMV. The first and second generations are calling themselves African American and Black American. I work with them. My son's African friend. That's all just call themselves that. Okay, well, let's break that down. Most African Americans are an amalgamation of different African ethnic groups. That is a reality. Right, if most individuals, if you trace your lineage, maybe 25% of the time, they're going to have a family member or an ancestor who came from the Caribbean. That is reality. Malcolm X is one of the greatest examples of that. Right, his mother was from Grenada.
Yeah, right. W.B. Du Bois as well.
W.B. Du Bois, his mother was Ghanaian, his father was a Haitian Creole.
Right. All right, brothers. Yeah. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to chime in, and I'm glad I was finally being able to tap into the show.
Yes, sir.
Anyway, so my thoughts on this issue is about 2-3 years ago, there was an explosion of FBA delineation, led by Tariq Nasheed.
Yes,
if you were on Clubhouse, that environment had become a place of real intellectual conversation to very toxic, very xenophobic environment. That kind of rhetoric was spewed all the time. Well, I'm glad to realize that was only a reflection of an online movement that provided shock value to to internet trolls and to individuals who, were divisive. But you go to a black church, which I personally attend here in Cleveland, Ohio. You go to any black institution, any organization, whether Pan-African or non-Pan-African. The good thing is nobody is talking about delineation. Nobody's talking about FBA. Yes, you do find instances where there's sentiment of, people feeling like African immigrants, like myself. I'm from Ghana. Just to give you some context, undermine the Black American struggle. But at the same time, in reality, it's only a reflection of a small minority of people who are ignorant on both sides. And at the end of the day, we are not out to get each other. I think many of us practice Pan-Africanism in real life off the internet, even when it's not necessarily intentional. And I think the agenda that the Tariq Nasheed and all the divisive Black nationalist forces were trying to push has been defeated in 2025. And yeah, I'll land my plane on that. And those are my thoughts. And we'll be happy to, hear what your thoughts are.
Quick question. You said many of us practice Pan-Africanism on a daily basis. Could you provide any examples to substantiate that?
So I'll give you an example. I was born and raised in Ghana. When a Black American sees me, I am regarded as a Black man. Before I have the opportunity to speak about Ghana, speak about Nkrumahism, or speak about Pan-Africanism, it's like I'm treated by Black Americans. I'm embraced, basically. Now, maybe not everybody may share the same experience, but if you are looking at your African brothers and sisters as Black people, that is a sign of Pan-Africanism, even when it's not intentional. It's like, yes, you are from Ghana, but it's irrelevant. We don't see you any differently like any other Black American. That's what I mean by that. Yeah. Oh, and by the way, Brother Lumumba, I may also add that I think, when you bring into the conversation about, I guess you could say, Dr. Nkrumah's influence, going to an HBCU, being part of a Black fraternity, and things of that nature. I guess it also adds to that Ghanaian African Black experience in America. So that almost, in my opinion, almost absorbs you of any potential discrimination, because I think in various Black American circles, it seems as though Ghana, which is supposed to be the Black Star, is an extension of or what I would call global Pan-Africanism, and that's what I've personally noticed. And this may be very anecdotal, but I'm just going based on that experience in Ohio.
And you're in Cleveland, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You know I'm from Dayton.
Yeah. I know. And I know you love Ohio State too.
Yeah, as well. I should. So very quickly, and the sister put up a comment. She says they don't go to our churches only because it is anti-immigrant time. Well, once again, that is an example of a surface level argument that does not change the social, political, economic realities of our communities. But once again, you're making an argument. So anytime a person paints a broad brush about an entire group of people, you typically know that they're being disingenuous, right? If you're going to make an argument that all African, and here's the thing, you're really making an argument. You're making a straw man argument. You're making an argument no one is making. No one is telling anyone to go and try to force yourself on the people that don't want to have anything to do with you. The issue is that you're making a claim that African people don't want to have anything to do with us, and that is adverse to facts historically and contemporarily. That's the argument that we're making. Absolutely, shout out to Ohio. Our churches don't influence us anymore, so our elders in church won't be saving you from ICE. So now you're starting to engage in some xenophobic rhetoric. So I would tell you this: if it happens again, we're gonna have to remove you from the show. I don't have a problem with someone having an opinion contrary to my own, but we don't attack black people here. We are a space of black empowerment. We believe in the three ends of black power: self what? Self-respect, self-defense, and self-determination. So if you want to use that type of rhetoric, you want to talk like you're a tough girl, go do that with the people who are actually oppressing us. In fact, we just gonna get you out of here anyway. I ain't got time for this type of foolishness. We're gonna get you out of here. And I tell you, listen, this is my channel. You know this is how we get down. We don't play those type of games. So, like I said, this is the Afrophobia, the xenophobia, the self-hatred. Because I'm quite sure when she run into white folks, she ain't talking like she's tough. We don't do that here. If you're not proud of who you are, then you can keep it moving, right? Because I've been doing my show for 5+ years, and we're gonna keep it. We do what we do out here. We're gonna handle our BI. But if you got issues of self-hatred, then you go handle that on your own, right? Because when you get hit with driving while black, guess what? They don't care if you're an immigrant or not. We just saw this was in the New York Times yesterday where ICE agents were pulling guns on actual American citizens driving their cars. And they knew they were American citizens. It doesn't even matter. And Trump was interviewed on 60 Minutes this past Sunday. The lady said, hey, do you think they're going too far? He said, no, I don't think they're going far enough. He said, but they're attacking American citizens. Don't even matter. So, you keep that over there. You keep that energy over there, right? But you can't bring that self-hatred over here. We don't do xenophobia. If you black, you are African, and we're going to hold you down. We're going to work together irrespective of where we are in the world to make our condition better. If you want to be the white man's B.I., if you want to be his senorita, then you go ahead and do that. But like John Henry Clark said, when you go over there, you stay over there. We don't do self-hatred in any way, shape, or form. We don't hate on our brother Dwayne is from Guyana. Brother Pan-African King is from Ghana. And of course, y'all know unfortunately, I'm from the good old US of A. Right? Doesn't matter. What can we do to improve our condition? Right? That's what this is about. Sister Shy, go right ahead. I'm glad you tapped in from the 614.
Oh, hello, everyone.
How you doing?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
Doing quite all right.
Okay, yes. I don't know where to start. I just feel like I just wish that we can all get along. That's all I have to say. Like I don't really care for oh God, I'm trying to say it,
Delineation.
delineations movement. I really don't care for that. I just don't like the xenophobia, but I do kind of understand that I guess African Americans maybe, well, I can't speak for all African Americans, but I can understand why some of them would want, maybe like a different name to call themselves. I can understand that, but I don't understand why they have to disrespect Africans or Caribbeans like those are our brothers and sisters. Like that's the thing that I don't understand.
Mhm.
But like I'm just tired of the whole stuff. So that's why I just been unsubscribing from different channels and stuff like that. I'm just tired of the whole disrespect of different groups of black people just disrespecting each other. So that's when I'm upset about. But
Sister
other than that,
Shy, if I can interject, I want to say I understand completely. Because what happens is it's like going on YouTube and watching a reality TV show.
yeah, yeah,
Literally. Or
yeah,
watching the boy show. Right? Or going on YouTube and going back into the 90s and watching Ricky Lake. It's just a bunch of drama. Who has time for that?
yeah, and that's why I was just like, I wish I mean, and I'm not trying to be negative. Please don't think I'm trying to be negative, but this is why I said I wish I would have never got into like this conscious, this black conscious movement and all this other stuff. I just wish I can go back to my old life, not joining any of these ideologies and anything like that. Like, and this is why I said that I didn't want to um get into pan-africanism and all that stuff. I just want to go back to the life that I had where it was just, I wasn't put in a box. That's what I'm trying to say. I don't want to be put in a box. And that's why I was saying like I don't want to be pan-African anymore because I just don't want to be put in the box. I just want to be cordial to people who are being cordial to me, just live my life, work, and, help others, who I can help. But I just don't want to be put in a box anymore. That's all.
No, I understand you want to live your life like it's golden. Mr. Sandman said you would make a great mediator in the black community when you become an elder. So you might have a future career, once you retire from your current gig. So, but let me see here, Mr. Goddard says making generalizations just proves you incorrect at the start of your argument. This is very true. This is something Malcolm X even talked about when he left the Nation of Islam. How he realized that was anti-intellectual. That made broad sweeping indictments about entire groups of people. Right, and we find that FBA, ADOS, they tend to do that on a regular basis. Once again, we had to excommunicate the sister from the show, and of course, I use the word sister in ear quotes because she started to engage in some vile rhetoric that was xenophobic in nature by stating that don't come to us when ICE comes looking for you, right? And we know that the overwhelming majority of Black immigrants are here legally, not illegally. Right, so we see this type of negative vitriol, right? I could give a damn if someone called themselves African American or not, right? It doesn't change the quality of my life in any way, shape, or form, right? But once again, as one of the brothers said in the comments, they talk about resources. Well, what are these resources, right? So, we're speaking in a manner that is rather nebulous in nature, which is something we also tend to find in the church as well. Pan-African King, what say you? Real quick, what part of Cleveland, if you don't mind me asking, are you in? Are you in the city or are you in the suburbs?
In the suburbs of Cleveland.
Okay, all right, Cuyahoga County, 216.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I got a lot of lake effect snow today, didn't y'all?
It was on Monday. I just came back from Chicago, but I know Monday we had snow.
Okay,
yes.
You was in Iraq. Okay, in Iraq. Okay.
Yes, sir. And speaking of immigration and stuff, ICE was heavy. They've been heavy in Chicago because it's seen as a sanctuary city. So, I mean, everybody has to be cautious, regardless of whether you identify as, African or Black American or, immigrants and whatever immigrant background you're from. I mean, there should be a certain level of caution, when you go into these types of cities and these environments. But anyway, in regards to the sister who was removed, and she mentioning ICE and so on and so forth, contrary to what she was saying, that in churches, in Pentecostal churches in Ohio, there have been some African, or I should say Ghanaian or, West African immigrants who have failed to show up to church services for fear of removal due to the current administration. So there's a level of fear, but I mean, to be honest, if you want to shield yourself, the best place to shield yourself is the Black church, or I should say the African American church, and not an African church, because they will. It's easy to target an African church as opposed to a Black American church where 99% of the members are Black American. So,
well, real quick, Pan-African King, we use the term African American here at Lumumba Speak.
I apologize, African American.
Yes,
African American. Yeah.
Very good. So yeah, Sister Shy, brother, Mr. K says, remember, even if you don't identify as a Pan-Africanist, you can still work with Pan-Africanists, because Pan-Africanists have to solely work with those who were not Pan-Africanists. So just something to consider. But I definitely understand your quagmire. I think most people want to live a life that's drama-free. And I would agree with you that oftentimes when you come into these Black consciousness circles, there's a lot of infighting. There's a lot of individuals fighting with each other regarding ego and not really wanting to do the work that's needed and necessary to improve our condition as a people. So I definitely understand that. But we hope that, we're happy that you're still here. And Sister Michelle, appreciate you tapping in all the way from, you're still in Maryland, right?
Of course, I can't go nowhere else.
Okay, all right, terrapin out here. Yeah, you real quick, because I'm gonna let you speak. Y'all ducked and dodged Ohio State this year, because y'all was on the schedule every other year. Now y'all don't want to play us. But I get it. If we're still number one, still the reigning defending champs, so I understand y'all gonna duck that smoke. We wait to see y'all next year. Go right ahead, sister.
Still believe in yourself. Maryland, number one. We always. You
Go
know,
ahead.
I'm about to sing Mariah Carey, "I Still Believe," but but on this note, this is a good space to have this discussion. I don't like the FBA tangent where it's going, because now, for example, I'm going to bring up Tariq Nasheed. I don't like the fact that at first it was kind of funny. Now I'm like, this is serious, Tariq. You have these all your podcast is about going against African and Caribbean people, which is really sad, because we, the Black American, have some serious issues that could be addressed. He has this hidden history museum, which I donated to. It's turned into a comedy shop, which is fine. I get it. You have to pay for it, which is fine. I get it. But I don't see you maybe doing a back to school, doing workshops for the people in community, especially the Black community. Because when I went to California many years ago, I was visiting a family member. Black people are being gentrified. I don't see anything in this FBA movement that is being used to help and uplift people of FBA descent or FBA lineage, like he always.
That's something that Brother Dwayne had mentioned earlier. He said that they've been around for quite some while, and please forgive me for cutting you off, but they haven't actually done anything tangible to help the very community or group of people they say they care about so much.
And then another factor is Tariq Nasheed used to be some type of guru. We have a lot of sisters who are single. I don't even see him using his form to even help the sisters to be in healthy relationships. That's the first thing. You're talking about lineage. You have to preserve your lineage. What program do you have to preserve the lineage? I mean, I don't see, I just see you just trolling African Caribbean. Like the other day, he had a lady whose son loves Ghana and the mother doesn't like Ghana. She traveled Africa, which is fine. You don't have to like everywhere you go. And she was kind of downplaying Africa, and he was like, yeah, I don't know why he likes that place, all that type of stuff. He was playing into it. He makes a lot of offhand comments about African and Caribbean people every day. After some point, somebody got to see the jig is up. Every day or every podcast, that is your total show. That is your total it's just frustrating me, and it's embarrassing, because I feel those efforts could be used to help the lineage, as you say. And like you had the sister on here saying all these things. How come they're not out here questioning all these things? If you need tangibles, we need tangibles from within ourselves. So y'all not even questioning within yourself. So after this, I'm like, this is a con.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because Brother Dwayne mentioned that. That why, if you have an issue, if that was the push for tangibles, you should be going to the individuals who are in positions of power, who hold the levels of power, and question those tangible benefits, rather than attacking people who have nothing to do with that.
And number two, if I'd like to say, I work in the because I do community help, and I was doing a stint in the penal system. I called it penal system for a reason.
Right, yeah, I know you had to do it 3 to 5.
No, I didn't. No, I mean, I was doing. I was covering.
I know you were working there. I know.
And you, even the Africans and Afro-Caribbeans were now the guards. They even complained about what's happening. They saw the problem, what was going on. They were putting Afro-Caribbeans as corrections officers. And I noticed even then, years before this FBA thing, it was starting to create division. So, and nobody's questioning it. How, the system is pitting us against each other. And two, if black people say they brought the immigrants here, or they allowed it here, African American women, why aren't they running to get jobs with ICE? I told one of my colleagues' son, he's not working. Go get a job with ICE. They pay at least 6 figures. Ask me if they go get that job. They get online and say, go get ICE. I'm going to call ICE, but won't go get a job with ICE.
Well, yeah, part of that is because, ICE, most people are aware of the racism that is.
No. They won't pass the trip test. I mean, we gotta call a spade a spade. Won't pass it. Some of us, I mean, we got to call a spade a spade. ICE has various job openings. I live here in the DC area. A lot of men need jobs. If you guys say you're going to call ICE, get a job with ICE. I don't see them getting a job. I don't see them doing anything but getting online here and just causing ruckus.
Okay. Fair enough. I mean, like you said, you're in the DMV. Mr. K says Tariq talks about being on code. but it's never transparent about what the code of conduct is that he is on code too. And brother Dwayne, we've had several conversations offline. He's a bit of a mentor to me in a number of ways. And one of the things he shared with me is that, when we talk about individuals who really, their call to fame or what they do to make a living is, of course, being a social media commenter or influencer, they're kind of like a rapper. They always have to reinvent themselves. So when Tariq first began notoriety, he was known for being like, this ladies' man who talked about pimping, the art of the Mac, so on and so forth, how to get a girl. He then pivoted to consciousness, and he talked about melanated people. And being on code as a melanated person, he released these, Hidden Colors DVDs. He then talked about, briefly, but jumped on the bandwagon of discussing Black or African resistance to, white supremacy with 1804, right? And he made a lot of money off of that DVD, that documentary about, the Haitian Revolution. And next thing you know, he's like, hey, forget these people, right? So we tend to find that he always reinvents himself when convenient to try to remain relevant.
And then, Brother Dwayne, may I ask a question, please? I'm sorry, I know this is your show. Another thing he likes to share, again, like you said, don't paint a group with the people with a broad brush. He likes to say that African people never came back for Black people, but after Haiti freed itself, they were building ships. They had plans.
I mentioned that, yes. Well, they had plans to actually engage in that. Henry Christophe, under his leadership, they were actually on the high seas capturing European slaving vessels and then freeing those brothers and sisters on those ships, and of course having them repatriate to Haiti. So this is in a historical record. So he's making claims that are reverse. In fact, something I also noticed when he's, people call into his show like they do here, is when brothers and sisters call in from the Caribbean or Africa and they're able to contradict his claims and show that the claims he's making is false, he would simply start insulting them, right? And so one of my good friends, he told me his wife doesn't like Tariq, and she said he acts like a teenager. If someone says, well, Tariq, that's not true, we actually review African Americans in a positive light, and we're working with African Americans in our local community to better the conditions of the community, he would just start insulting them and calling their names. So what we see here is facts does not matter. Facts don't matter. Now Lumumba, not a rapper, more like a wrestler in WWE, where every few years wrestlers reinvent their gimmicks to stay relevant and move with the times. You know what? I give that to you, absolutely. So this is what we find. Yeah, we can find Hulk Hogan, right? At one point, Hulk Hogan was the positive, then he shifted to being the heel. He became Hollywood Hogan, then he joined NWO. Don't judge me, family. There was a time when I was a child, I was really into wrestling, right? So you're absolutely right there, right? We keep talking about the Undertaker, right? And then there was a time when he kind of took on this biker type persona, right? So once again, I was really into wrestling when I was a kid, right?
Me too.
Yeah, I remember. And here's the thing: I remember my dad. Shout out to my pops. This man purchased a pay-per-view wrestling event for my brother and I to watch, knowing that it was fake. I personally would not purchase a pay-per-view event for my children to watch, and I know that it's rigged. I wouldn't do that, but he did that for us, right? But we're getting too far into the weeds, but absolutely, this would be a more example of a wrestler rather than a rapper.
And then another issue that Tariq doesn't want to have a discussion about, America was built on blood, sweat, and labor. America hasn't changed. He won't talk about the Black erasure, Black people losing their land. He won't talk about gentrification. He doesn't talk about the real issues really hurting us here as Black people. He's talking about, in all honesty, he's talking about, for example, I live in the Washington, D.C. area. Healthcare in the D.C. area is run by Afro-Caribbeans, hands down. If it wasn't for the Afro-Caribbeans here, there will be no nurses or anybody in healthcare facilities. They, in the past 20 years, have taken over. DC government even offered at one point for DC residents to go to nursing school for free. It was at that time, it was mainly people of immigrant background taking advantage of those scholarships or opportunities at that time. And another thing about immigrant communities, they tend to stick with their families in terms of building up and moving forward. He won't even start an economic group in city to city. You have all these people he can do so many things to build the lineage. And you know what? the Afro-Caribbean community, we won't be hating on it. We will actually support and encourage it. But he always, I think he pays those guys to call in and say crazy things. I think he's being paid because every day, every hour, you're getting these type of calls. I don't believe it. I really don't.
That may be possible. Great point there. Saw your comment in the chat. Saw your comment as well, Ms. Pan African King. I appreciate that. But yeah, I think you may be right there. It's extremely unfortunate because when you and we find this with a lot of individuals who I would argue are pseudo leaders, right? Where they are able to galvanize the masses, but then when they have that the attention of the people, they don't do anything to actually uh, anything that will be actually empowering in nature, right? I mentioned this before, and I remember Triple H, Mr. K. Yeah, he invented himself a lot of times, but then he started calling himself the Game, right? Then The Rock started calling himself the Great One, right? So they always are reinventing themselves, having a gimmick to stay relevant. But with Tariq Nasheed, when you go to the FBA website, it's nothing but products to sell. He says, we're not a political organization. We're not any type of activist. All we are, we are lineage. And the reality situation is he's simply selling products. Keychains, T-shirts, all types of stuff. So
let me ask you this. I have a question for you, Dr. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Would you because Tariq previously identified as a Pan-Africanist at one point, and then he took the position of more of like a Black nationalist. Would you consider ADOS, FBA, and all these other fringe groups as so-called Black nationalists? Because sometimes people conflate Pan-Africanism with Black nationalism, and I look at it as the birth child. However, it is more focused on, issues within the United States and doesn't necessarily include the diaspora. So what are your thoughts on that? And would you consider those movements as Black nationalist movements?
Yeah. I think that's a great question. I think one we can clear up what is the difference between a Black nationalist and Pan Africans. A Black nationalist is someone who advocates for the political, social, and economic empowerment of Black people in a particular country. So you can be a Black nationalist in Jamaica, Ghana, Brazil, etc. A Pan Africanist is someone who advocates and supports the social, political, economic empowerment of Black people globally. I would argue that individuals affiliated with ADOS, FBOA aren't even Black nationalists. I would argue they're simply xenophobic, poor imitations of whites. Because part of being a nationalist, a Black nationalist, is once again working towards the social, political, and economic improvement of one's community. These individuals are I apologize, family. My my computer just crashed on me, so I had to restart for some reason. I guess it overheated. But so we're back at it. Hopefully, you all could tap back in. I do apologize for the inconvenience. But the question, I would say no, right? When we talk about Black nationalism, at least what happens is the person is engaging in some type of action that seeks to empower one's community, right? Whether that be political, social, educational, economic, etc. That's not the case here, right? Individuals are simply seeking to foment disunity and conflict amongst Black people from other countries. So I would not argue that these are individuals who are nationalistic in terms of their political social disposition. I would argue that they are simply an example of Americanized tribalists. All Black people are Africans. We should use concepts of Ubuntu as a philosophy to facilitate dialogue, networking, utilization of diversity as a strength enhancer, all to build synergy and power. I would agree with you, brother. And we find this a lot with, unfortunately, brothers and sisters. I don't know if we should even use this on brothers and sisters, but individuals who, of course, promote this concept of FBA ADUS, they tend, like I said before, they make claims that they are unable to substantiate. And oftentimes the claims that they make are surface level tropes, like the young lady who said, "Well, they don't come to our churches." Who fucking cares? That does not change the cost of tea in, of course, China, right? So Tariq is like a wolf that covers himself in sheep's clothing. Absolutely. And at the end of the day, it's all about making money. I've told people this on a number of occasions that with Tariq Nasheed, what he does is he will create a problem and solution is to buy a product from him. That is consistent with Tariq Nasheed. Hey, we don't learn our actual history, so the solution is to what? Buy a product. We don't have an actual independent African American museum, so give me money to create a museum that I can monetize and make money off of, even though there are independent African American museums. The greatest example of that would be the Charles Wright Museum, African American Museum in Detroit, Michigan, right? So he has a long history of creating a problem, and then the solution is him creating a product in which he's able to make money. Sister Shy, go right ahead.
Yes. Yeah, what Michelle was saying, yes, I don't really care for Tyreek Nasheed either. I mean, I used to watch him years and years ago, and then I just noticed that he doesn't really like black women anyway, so I stopped watching him a long time ago. And then now with this FBA stuff, I just can't do it. It's too much, and yeah, it's too much division going on, and I just don't like it. I just don't like it. So yeah, I try to unsubscribe from people who likes this back and forth between Africans and African Americans and Caribbeans. I just don't like it. So it's terrible.
Understood. And I do apologize. Like I said before, my computer crashed, so I had to restart it. You said you realized he doesn't like black women. What took place or what transpired that led you to take that position?
He'll just say like little stuff, and then when he tried to compare like mixed race relations, he was saying that black children grow up better with a white woman and black man than a black woman and a white man. And he was just like doing like comparisons and just saying a lot of like things about black women that I didn't
Mhm.
like. And then his whole pimp, when he was like this whole pimp lifestyle, I just didn't like that. I just didn't like that. So I was just like, what are you trying to say? Like, are like black women are just bad? Like, I mean, like, I just didn't like that. So I just unsubscribed years ago when he was talking about all that stuff. And I said, no, this is not the channel for me. So I just left. I've
And
been left.
I do
So
know that he's his wife. I believe he's married, but I do know he said that his mother-in-law was white. So if that is true, I am of the belief that his wife is biracial, and
yes.
so
Yeah, she's biracial. Yes, she is.
Hmm.
yeah, so it's
She used to
a lot of
here and there when I
foolishness.
used to watch
So
it.
go ahead, Sister Michelle.
Oh, I apologize. I was just verifying. Yes, she is biracial, but she identifies as black.
Okay. Mr. K says even in his books about macking and pimping, it was full of misogynistic themes and content. Could you provide some examples and specific substantiate that claim, Mr. K. Yeah, so but like I said, these individuals typically go after individual people who aren't well read, right? They aren't knowledgeable of these particular issues, right? They don't have a high level of political education to understand that engaging in this type of vitriol doesn't benefit us in any way, shape, or form. It's simply we're fighting against each other.
Like, for example, like I said, I work in healthcare right now. My focus is mainly more health now. I've had my Black Americans say, I don't want an African nurse. But like, who's going to take care of you? Your own damn kids don't want to be bothered with you.
Yeah, and it's crazy, Michelle, because like I said, I'm a nurse and I work with a lot of African nurses, and they're cool. We all get along, like, and we all help each other. I just don't understand. Like, it's crazy because I work in the rehab center. I work with physical therapists and occupational therapists, and I work with a lot of African nurses, and I mean, I don't know. They're the coolest ones to work with. I'm just saying. They're the coolest ones to work with. I mean, I like working with all Black people, I mean, I worked with Caribbean nurses. I worked with other African American nurses. Um, you know, I just don't understand why you don't want a African nurse to take care of you. It's I don't That's crazy. That's all I have to say.
And
That's
so,
crazy.
like, we had this traveling nurse who was white, and she couldn't understand this. She was like, "What's going?" I mean, I kept quiet because again, I'm a contractor. I didn't want to get into all that with her because I don't know. I don't trust you. There's a whole dynamic. You're a whole nother dynamic within itself, and she was just perplexed.
That's crazy. Oh wow.
Because you have to understand. People from outside don't know. They don't understand those dynamics until you bring it up. Because it's just crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like, one here, situations here and there. It's becoming more and more frequent.
Yeah. Yeah, and Mr. K says, Tariq even said single Black mothers don't deserve reparations.
What's his reparations plan? That's my issue with him.
He doesn't have one. That's the reality. I would argue, and once again, I'm speculating, but I would argue that he spoke about reparations to try to legitimize himself as an activist, while not actually having a plan of how to gain the favor and support of politicians to move your agenda to the front of the political queue.
And then the issue, because they had the reparations bill proposed in California, I didn't see him get out there. I didn't see.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that, particularly even in the city of San Francisco. Absolutely. He was still just simply talking about Caribbeans and Africans. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I remember that. I think I even did a show, and I even posted some videos on my platform about that. In the city of San Francisco, they had passed a charter, were looking to pass a charter in support of reparations for African Americans. Right.
All lineage based.
So then I remember they started talking.
It was a lineage based proposal, everything. But
yeah,
no,
absolutely. So then I remember them saying, well, West Indians and Africans are trying to get reparations. I said, well, can you provide an example of someone from the Caribbean or the continent claiming that they should have access to reparations based on African Americans whose ancestors suffered child enslavement? I said, so they were literally, like I said, a solution in search of a problem. We're going to start creating a narrative that doesn't even exist, rather than actually focusing on the real issue. Because if they focus on the actual issue, their inability to bring about reparations for African Americans, it would show their how inept they are. It would show their impotence. And most of the individuals who have platforms, they don't actually have an actual skill, talent, or a day job. Their way to make money is by promoting controversy on YouTube.
Exactly.
Literally, that's all they don't have an actual job.
But then it spills over into the real world where I'm here trying to support families, and you telling me you don't want Africa. And again, it's not these one-off situations here and there. It's becoming very frequent now.
Yeah, my son's pediatrician was a sister from Senegal. My first mentor when I went to college, I was in a community college who kept me from dropping out and got my mind right, was a brother from Liberia. He's still my mentor to this day. Right, so that once again, like the sister that I had to kick out the show when she's talking about, well, these people are unorganized, and how This is it's the self-hatred. Because
Oh, she's my patient. She's my client patient.
wow. As Malcolm said, you can't hate the roots of a tree and not hate the tree itself. You can't hate your origin. You can't hate where you come from and not hate yourself. It's impossible.
I kind of knew it was going to be something when I saw her commenting, because she was the one, it was about maybe a couple years ago.
Mhm.
Dinah's had a all female panel, and we were trying to, okay, the topic was about how can it was about African women and African American women talking about the problems, and like why is the reason why we clash, and is there, where we wanted to find ways how we can talk about it and how we can get along. And so she came on Dinah's channel, and she was the only one that was really arguing with all of us, like trying to
Mm.
argue with all of us. And then it was the Igbo chick, it was the Igbo lady that was arguing with Chantel, the one that was in your chat, and they started arguing. And I was like, oh my God, because I'm the one that told Dinah about the topic. Can we have this topic so we can find ways to talk to each other and get along? And she just made it a mess. I wish Dinah's would have just got her off the channel. I'm sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Dinah's don't kick people off. I do, but he doesn't.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Well, I mean, so send me a message, and I'll be willing to do a show like that.
okay, yeah,
Yeah,
that'll be good. Yeah.
absolutely. And once again, I just shut up. I guess I can maybe moderate, but let you all take the forefront because we always want sisters in the struggle. And I always talk about part of the history of African people and African diasporic people that sisters always played an equal role in the struggle for what? Our humanity and our liberation.
Another thing with the ADUS, where is Yvette Cornell? I think she has conceded to the Democratic Party, him and her Antonio Moore.
Okay.
Like, because like again, we as Black people, we Black people global, we understand that we all are not flat Black. We get it, and again, we're not trying to stand in your way, but you don't have to criticize everybody.
Well, but here's the issue. That once again is a argument that they created out of thin air. No, because I did a show on what's the guy that's in Uganda? He's from Sacramento.
O'Shea
Duke Jackson.
Oh yeah, O'Shea.
He
Yeah.
says we're Pan-Africanists.
Yeah, he
was talking about how Pan-African, there's no fairness in Pan-Africanism, but he didn't provide any examples to show that Pan-Africanism was unfair. He stated that Pan-Africanists were promoting this concept of a flat Black identity, but he didn't provide any examples to substantiate the claims that he made. Why? Because he was lying.
Yeah, but Tariq got in his tail a bit a few years.
It doesn't matter. But the issue is they are making claims. Like you almost have to think, well, either these individuals, they're agents, or they're just so politically immature they don't even realize that they're actually causing harm. That's the reality. And most people are politically immature. They have no idea what they're talking about. For example, Brother Dwayne, he had to leave. He was invited to give a talk on a virtual talk nationwide with the organization Black Man Build. It was about debunking African diaspora origin myths. That we're Native Americans, that we're actually Jewish people, all that type of foolishness, right? That we're Moors, all that dumb crap, dumb stuff. So they had us go into breakout groups and discuss these different myths. And so I'm in a breakout group and people are talking, but the conversation wasn't going anywhere because no one actually knew the history. So people were just starting to speculate. And I just came in and said, listen, I'm Dr. Bakari K. Lumumba. This is what I went to school for. These are the historical facts. And this is information to substantiate these. This is what actually transpired. Right? So what happens is you typically have people come together and they are having conversations in echo chambers. And these are echo chambers of ignorance. I was mentioned that with my students at the center. I said, a lot of times, I have to jump into the conversation because respectfully, you all don't know what you're talking about. Right? And having the conversations with people where there's misinformation being promoted or going back and forth doesn't help anyone grow and develop.
No, it's not. And as I shared, and my sister will also agree, it now is affecting people's day-to-day lives.
Mhm.
I had a situation where I was working with this guy. He was from Cameroon. He does substitute teaching. Substitute teachers, number one, you get a bad rep anyway when you work with students, but they're very disrespectful to him. They won't
Right.
listen to him, call him all sorts of African, whatever. And he had to, couldn't do the, people have to come in and, it was just a really difficult experience for this guy.
That's sad.
Yeah, because they were using some of the Tariq. I'm not going to repeat some of the Tariq sounding board stuff.
Talking points, yeah.
Mhm.
But once again, it's rooted in self-hatred. That is a reality. That is, and I hate to make it that simple, but once again, as Malcolm stated many years ago, you can't hate Africa. You can't have a negative view of Africa and have a positive view of yourself. It's impossible.
Mhm.
And so what many of these individuals are trying to do, they're advocating for cultural and historical self-abnegation. That in order to be able to become whatever it is they want to be, they have to distance themselves from their African history, heritage, and culture.
Well, they're doing a bad job of it because now it's affecting their 8 domains of society.
And so what some are arguing is some of this is because they believe that in doing so, they would gain closer proximity to whiteness and the privileges of whiteness in America. And I would give you an example. If you remember, Tariq Nasheed was coming out with all these DVDs about black this and black that. Next thing you know, he puts out a video where it's America. Basically, it was a parodying Trump's American First conference, where they had black people waving American flags, and I said, yeah, this is a complete contradiction. I mean, during Trump's first administration, he said that only immigrants vote for Trump. Now he's a Trump supporter. Brother Phil from the African Diaspora News Channel, that clown, yes, I called him a clown. He, on his channel, talked about the importance of connecting with the African diaspora, having the Africa plan as a backup. Next thing you know, I was on, this is when I first got hit to the YouTube streets, and I was on Dinah's channel. He was on there. He says, well, Haitians come over here and they create Haitian communities, little Haiti. I said, well, what's wrong with that? Well, nothing's wrong with it. I said, so what are you complaining for? And so, like I said, they just parrot each other. If one person says something, everyone starts saying it.
But he's sponsoring a trip to Africa soon, so just in case you're interested, Phil.
Right, but he's still engaged in that type of vile rhetoric. This is a reality.
I just think this just looks so bad for us as a collective. It looks so bad, and I'm just one little voice here.
Yeah, it is bad.
Yeah. But once again, the major issue here, this is what I call social political cowardice. I might write an article about that.
And then also, when you do that article, if you can narrate how is even now it has seeped into daily life. Yeah.
Well, for example, Brother Bequaline, he's from Sierra Leone. He says, he's from Columbus. Shout out to Ohio, right? Once again, 614. He was able to. You absolutely, Sister Michelle. We're gonna rap.
Oh wait, he's in Columbus, Ohio.
National champions. I'm sorry.
Oh no! I just asked. He's in Columbus, Ohio.
Yes.
Oh wow.
Yes.
That's cool.
We all got to connect.
Oh yeah, that would be wonderful.
So what ends up taking place is, he said, Brother Bequaline is like 6'5". He's tall as hell. And there's brothers he connected with in the community who are African Americans, brought him to his home. They're eating dinner with his family, eating Sierra Leonean food. Tariq Nasheed comes out with FBA, all of a sudden they won't talk to him anymore.
Oh, that's horrible.
Literally, just like that.
Because of Tariq Nasheed?
Yes.
Gosh, he's trouble. He's trouble.
Yeah. So these are the issues that we are facing. These are the issues that we're seeking to combat. Really, disunity, right? But the major issue is that Black immigrants are the softest target, and so as a result, they don't have to be held accountable for not attacking the individuals or holding the individuals who are responsible for the social political quagmire holding their feet to the fire. Because I remember when I did my interview with Afro Elite, and I said, well, I did research, and Black immigrants make up only, 6% of the immigrant pool. He said, that's because we've been advocating against that. I said, no. I said, actually, I went back 20 years. It's always been this way. Right? But his issue, I said, let's say that was true. Why wouldn't you go after the group of immigrants who are coming here the most, rather than those that are coming here the least? So it makes no sense.
Again, another issue. Like I said, I was talking to a brother. Where was he from? I think the brother was from Guinea, and I was like, this so-called single motherhood thing, that's such a problem in the in our community, the Black American community. Mm-hmm. If we make connections with the Caribbean and Africa, it could be solved overnight. Literally, we could solve a lot of our social issues overnight if we would just humble ourselves and unite. Literally. And be one of the strongest people in the country.
Yeah, but I think the issue is that they don't want to actually coalesce or unite or even gain empowerment. The goal is just to attack other people, other Black people. That's all that is. And like and we see this a lot. I remember playing football in high school. So in high school, I wasn't as big and buff as I am now. I was rather skinny, maybe even underweight. So I remember we're in football practice, and you got these linebackers. They trying to knock me on my head. Yeah, we play a white school from the suburbs. They can't make a tackle to save their life. I remember this, and mind you, I'm only 110, 120 pounds.
Wow, you were slim.
Yeah, I'm a little guy, right? And I remember that. I'm like, wow, so you tough with me. But then we play a suburban white school, and you can't make a tackle. Same thing here, right? We see this in the music industry. Every time you turn around, they beefing with each other. A white record executive, they ain't got nothing to say about them.
Not in the least bit.
Eminem, ain't got nothing. Why? Because it's rooted in racial deference. Eminem came out with a number of videos and tracks using racial epithets. They were unearthed, right? Secret tapes. Well, I mean, he used to go. He's one of the goats. A Black man might say, I just don't find that other Black woman attractive. Everybody jump on him. Please. Like, these guys are cowards. Real cowards. See, the difference with me is I'm like this every day, everywhere I go. I'm not just Black on YouTube. I'm not just unapologetically Black around Black people. I'm like this all the time. You all saw it on my channel. I streamed live my dissertation defense.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. It was
Everybody
good.
knows 75% of my dissertation committee was what? What race were they?
White.
Exactly. And I started off by stating what I say this with all the conviction that my soul can muster, that the vitriol against Haitian people is not based on what they allegedly eat or who they beat 220 years ago. I'm like this every day. I just, when I get around white folk, you just got to get, No. I'm a real Black man. Now, I don't cosplay as a Black. I'm a real Black man, right? I have a thorough knowledge of my history, heritage, and culture. I understand Black struggle. My day job is helping Black people accomplish their social, political, economic, and educational goals.
And then another thing about Tariq Nasheed, I like to say, he wants Black people just to focus here in America, but we live in a global world. Are you narrowing your listeners just to America? Yes, America may be the superpower at this time, but even I work with white people. White people, they have investments in Europe. They have investments in the Caribbean.
Absolutely.
Are you narrowing our people to just America when there's a big global world?
Absolutely. So let me ask this question to the panel, then we're going to start to close out. And this is a great question, Mr. K. In the Black communities that you know of that are being gentrified, are they being gentrified by Black immigrants or non-Blacks?
White and non-Blacks.
Exactly. Well, what would you say, Sister Shy?
Yeah, I agree. Non-Blacks.
Right. So the individuals who, when we're being deleted by the Testorico police, are we being deleted by Black immigrants who are police or non-Blacks who are police officers?
Non-Blacks.
when we are being what's the word term? Let's see here. So miseducated. Are there Black immigrants who are miseducating us at school, or non-Blacks who are miseducated?
Non-Blacks.
Non-Blacks.
Right. When we go to the hospital, when we're being misdiagnosed or killed in the hospital when all we have is a hangnail, are these Black immigrants who are doing this, or non-Blacks who are deleting us in the medical field?
Non-Blacks.
You see, we come up with another one.
I mean, like, for example, I've had situations where I had patients who I believe, and I'm not a medical professional, I'm just a community worker. I'm like, this person needs dialysis. And the Indian doctor is looking like, let's hold off a little bit, keep him on these pills. I'm like, I think he's going to crash, in my mind. And guess what? He crashes.
See, wow.
Because they're saying maybe, he has a drug history. I mean, they dismiss. I mean, you'd be surprised what happens.
Absolutely. So this is something to, and then we know that some of them came out and said, well, some Black immigrants that come over here and they start becoming conservatives. I said, we have African Americans who are conservatives.
Speaking of which, Tariq, you would never go after the Hodgkin twins.
Right, exactly. Larry Elder. So I said, this is not an issue of nationality. It's an issue of political ideology. But once again, playing slick and loose with the facts, right? Purposely, lying by omission to manipulate an entire, you could even argue, generation of people. And like I said, but at the end of the day, the goal is to simply do what? Make money. Hey, with FBA, I made us a flag. He wrote a book, Foundational Black American Race Baiter. That's the name of the book he wrote.
Yeah, it's a bestseller on Amazon. It sold pretty well. Yeah.
So make sure y'all go out and check out my book on Amazon. Right? So, all you got to do is type in, matter of fact, let me bring this up. Bakari Lumumba. And let me very quickly. Yeah, here we go. Let me bring this up here. Before we get out of here. I don't know if it's going to sell like his because, I'm talking about some real shit, but we'll see how that goes. So, yeah, you can go to Amazon, Bakari Lumumba, and you go, of course, Red, Black, and Green Papers, Volume 1, Views on Race, Power, and Society from a 21st Century Pan-Africanist. And then, of course, Red, Black, and Green Papers, Volume 2, Views on Race, Gender, and Power from a 21st Century Pan-Africanist. So those two texts are available on Amazon. Do not hesitate to purchase.
Can you put the link in the chat? Are you able to put the link in the chat?
I actually, so I put a post on my channel yesterday that it sends you, it sends you to the author page, author page on Amazon. Yes, but also you can just type my name in and it'll come up.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
thank you. Yeah, I'll purchase it on Friday.
No problem. Let me know what you think. Leave a review. But like I said, these are real issues. I'm glad you all brought this up because it's actually starting to cause internal harm. As Mr. K said, the issues that we're facing, the oppression we're facing, isn't coming from Black immigrants. It's coming from non-Blacks. So that's who we should be looking to fight against.
And then
if logic is going
Tariq Nasheed, and I'm looking at him very quietly. Tariq, you got a daughter. Who is going to marry her? Tariq got an older daughter, brown skin, beautiful sister, beautiful daughter. And I'm looking at Tariq. Who is going to marry your child? Because at one point, I remember in one of his broadcasts, he had mentioned she was dating a Jamaican guy of Jamaican descent. And I'm looking, I'm hearing this. I'm saying, you have to be careful because a lot of these immigrant men, especially the Black immigrant men, are options for us as black women.
But here's the thing: as a Pan-Africanist as well, they should be.
Of course, but if you have Tariq Nasheed out here, a lot of these sisters are probably rejecting brothers who could probably be good mates for them.
Right.
And you have a single woman problem here. Like, he needs to be very careful about what he's doing because he's causing harm.
He doesn't care. He's about one thing, and that's himself.
I like what happened to the brother you shared. Brothers one day coming to your house, and the next day they're not coming to your house.
Yeah, they wouldn't speak to him anymore. Yeah, wouldn't speak to him anymore. Yeah. I remember when I did my show at Afro Elite. This is about 3 years ago. I mean, it eerie because he was actually emulating Tariq Nasheed's mannerisms. The way he even spoke, he was, you dig, you feel me? Like, what the? So, I mean, it's almost cult-like in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And then the brother said, well, I'm a former Pan-Africanist. I said, okay, well, what organization were you part of? What initiative did you work on? Couldn't tell me. I said, you're not a Pan-African just because you was wearing a dashiki. And so in that conversation, which I think has almost 2,000 views, now you can go back and watch it on my channel, I'm asking him questions about Pan-Africanism. He knew nothing about it. And we see this, a lot of people do this. They position themselves as public intellectuals when they aren't intellectuals at all. A great example is when I did the, of course, reaction video to 19 Keys Breakfast Club interview. He was making 19 Keys stated that Black Studies was created by the CIA.
Wow.
I know that isn't true because I had to cover the creation of Black Studies as part of my dissertation research. Right? Black people were shot, beaten, fired, thrown in jail for trying to create Black Studies at San Francisco State University. If you ask him where Black Studies started, he wouldn't even be able to tell you. Then he stated that, well, we was on to the right path, but then we started trying to connect with Black people in Ghana. Then 20 minutes later, he came back and said, our problem is that we don't have any international allies. So he was just rambling, bloviating, no clear, consistent stream of thought whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
This is what we have out here passing as Black political thought. A good example of that is Charlemagne the God. This guy doesn't know what the hell he's talking about, but he's given a platform for that very reason.
Well, him and Rowley are back and forth, so.
Yeah, but and you know, I have my issues with Roland Martin because he's vote blue no matter who, right? But at the very least, Roland Martin provides factual information, right? Charlemagne the God is he's a comedian, he's a celebrity, he is not an intellectual. He's even stated on the Breakfast Club that his wife is the one who helps the children with the homework because he doesn't know how to do that. Education in school is not his strong suit. He even stated this. But this is someone that you're trying to get, that they're really supposed to listen to when he's providing a political opinion? Can't take him serious.
Yeah, he wrote a book called Black Privilege a few years ago.
I have the book.
Oh, gosh. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So these are some of the issues that we're up against. That now part of the issue is misinformation. This reminds me of when we go back to Asala Shakur, where she mentioned that when they were ending their wars or fights with the alphabet boys, they started having to fight with drug dealers in the community. To keep the community safe. It wasn't the police anymore, it was drug dealers. So that was not miseducation that we have to fight in the schools, it's misinformation amongst so-called Black influencers. Yeah, we talk about Cameron. He was on this show talking about, yeah, they don't really mess with us like that. Well, anybody with sense wouldn't mess with a grown-ass man who acts like a teenager. Let's be honest here. And I like Cameron's music. I listen to his music, particularly when I'm working out. Dipset, Bird Gang, you know what I'm saying? On the wheel. Santana dip, yo set. What you grip, text. Who you with, torp, yo set. Dipset, dip, ow, right? I love his, you know, what he said, baby, I don't do the drugs, baby, I move the drugs right on the computer love. Sounds like computer love. See the face, we move to work in front of H on our block, see the face on my watch, put your face on my O, right? Mm-hmm. We got bars. But dude, you're 40-something years old, you act like a teenager. A reasonable person would say, hell nah, I don't want my children associating with this man. It's not ethnicity, it's class and character.
But and then another issue I'm worried about, especially with the music industry, as the next generation comes and the legacy is leaving, us losing our rights to our music and our royalties.
Absolutely. And that's something I brought up, and we talk about these surface level issues that they're raising. Well, who created hip hop? So the real issue needs to be who controls it, who owns it. That's the real issue. Say stop the dumb shit. Who fucking cares who created it if we don't control the industry?
Yeah.
If you got white people in suits telling a Black person, hey, you're not Black enough because you're not making songs about being sexually promiscuous, or you're not black enough, as Jadakiss said, because the Soup told him this song is, we're not going to publish this song unless you rewrite it and include more N-words and MFers in it.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
Oh yeah, Dr. Bakari, if you can do a request on, rap music wasn't in the top 40 in the past few weeks. That is, I think that's, and also I was reading some TikTokers were saying that they were tired. Even black people are now getting tired of the negativity. It's just overly.
Yeah.
Like every song from a female artist is about how much of a whore she is.
Yeah, I can't. Yeah, I don't like it.
You don't got nothing else to talk about?
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
I remember one of my students said, well, but that's what you got to do to sell. I said, bullshit. I said, the highest selling female hip hop album in the history of hip hop was Lauryn Hill.
Right. Yeah.
And she wasn't talking that dumb shit. Because you got real talent, you don't have to use a gimmick.
Mm-hmm. If you can do a show on that, I'll send you a message to request that. And because I think that needs to be broken down. How rap music in over 40 years has not made the top 40. That's interesting.
Yeah, but not over 40 years. Recently, there wasn't a rap song or a hip hop song in the top 40 of the Billboard.
Billboard. Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you for rephrasing.
Yeah. And so I saw that, and so we could do a show on that. But these are real issues that we're facing as a people. And it's not because there's an issue of who created hip hop. The issue is over who owns and controls hip hop.
Because now they built that museum in the Bronx.
Yeah.
So I want to know who's funding this, because I'm really concerned.
Avenue, yeah, that's where it started.
Yeah, but I want to know who's funding this, because this is to me concerning.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's very concerning.
So yeah, these
our hip hop legends are dying, and you look at the kids or their children, they're broke. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
I guess I'll wait till we have that topic and we can.
Yeah. We can hold off. I probably would do that show next. Lumumba, thanks to my man Ryan Proctor. I'm still in tune with the Black intellectual rappers across the diaspora. Very good, yes, but they're not getting promoted, right? So these are real issues. As I said, when we talk about FBAD, ADOS, they engage in surface level arguments, surface level tropes, not real issues, not substantial issues. Because if you want to focus on who controls hip hop and how we could gain control of an industry that you can argue that we created along with other Black people here in the diaspora, that's going to be a bigger issue. That's not something you could just bloviate about online, right? That's going to be a serious battle, because now we're talking economics. See, any Black person can create their own record label, but guess who controls distribution? Any Black person create their own hair salon, but guess who controls the distribution of beauty products?
Bingo.
Right? We're talking about controlling industry. This is something Marcus Garvey understood. You have to be able to control industry, control the levers of power. That's not a conversation they want to have, because that's not something you can bloviate about. And if you try to address that issue and you're unsuccessful, it shows your impotence. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm talking about here? See, the gloves is off. The love is done. It's whenever, however, homie won, right? These are the real issues that people don't want to address. Like, I remember when I became aware of O'Shea Duke Jackson video critiquing Pan-Africanism, one of the brothers who's also a PhD sent it to me. He said, this is a great video. And I said, actually, it isn't. I said, he's actually making claims about Pan-Africanism aren't true. He's even criticizing Pan-Africanism based on the actions of people who aren't Pan-Africanists. So that would be like me criticizing Christianity based on the actions of someone who's Muslim. I say, stop the dumb shit. Stop the dumb shit. So, but until next time, family, y'all know what to do.
Okay, when is your next show?
Shoot, we could do it. I could do a show tomorrow on the hip hop thing.
Okay, because I got this notification late. Yeah, so
okay, yeah, I'll set it up before.
I know you used to have schedules.
Yeah, so I set it up before I call it a night tonight. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Well, Doctor, the gentleman, do you think he'll be present, or when he's present? Because I do appreciate his insight.
You're talking about Brother Dwayne.
Yeah.
Yes, so, he's a doctor now. He has his JD, so he is a doctor now.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
So if I make a request, I'm not sure if we can coordinate to make sure he can be available to and have this show, because I think his insight will be very good for us.
Absolutely. Like I told you, he's my Pan-African big brother. He's the one who implored me to start writing. Mm-hmm. On Medium, he's the one who implored me to start writing books. right?
Yeah, so I think if you can coordinate with him and have that topic about rap music, because he can
Absolutely.
also bring in the dance hall, how dancehall has also been infiltrated, Afro beats and all that to
No,
be
absolutely.
vulgar. I'm like, y'all. And again, and the reason why I have an issue with that, I want to get us to topic, because I work with people who've been abused. Even sometimes when I hear this music, I feel like I'm getting abused. And some of these rappers have probably been abused themselves. But that's a topic for tomorrow. That topic.
Absolutely. A free, as a matter of fact, this I want to close out. Thank you for that comment. Hope you subscribe, hit the like button, thumbs up as well. One of the things I do like about Sac State is they have the Pan African Studies program. And one of the movies that is required for students to watch when they are taking the course on Introduction to Pan Africanism, they have to watch the movie Sankofa.
I haven't seen that in years. Yes,
You know what I'm talking about.
I haven't seen that movie.
Oh, you got to check it out, sister. You got to check it out.
I probably need to rewatch it because it's been many years since I watched it.
It's deep. It's deep. Deep. So when we're doing some real work over here, like I said, my day job is to help students gain their true political, social, economic, educational potential and prepare them to leave campus and go into society with a competitive advantage. But of course, always betting on Black. So that I'm someone who actually practices what I preach on a daily basis, right? I'm not someone who simply bloviates on, of course, YouTube and these YouTube streets, but something to consider. Once again, Sister Free, I appreciate you tapping in. Of course, we are aware that you're preaching to the choir here, but most individuals, unfortunately, when you talk to individuals who are FBA and ADOS, providing factual information doesn't matter to them. That's something that I've realized. Providing factual information does not matter. Yeah, so these are individuals that you can't have a conversation with. But as I said, I sent the message to Dennis Sperling. I sent the email to Sister Crimson Cure, Kendra Davis. But I'm quite sure I won't get a response because these are individuals who typically do not like to be part of conversations in which they're going to be challenged.
Oh yeah, that's what I wanted to tell you. The reason why I unsubscribed for her, because I really liked her, but it was this one show that I was on, and she just kept mocking people who were like mentally retarded, like mentally retardation. I did not like that. It made me real. I just had, and she just kept on going and going and just laughing. I said, you know what? I can't take this. Let me unsubscribe.
Yeah, and I'm going to say this, because I'm familiar with her channel. I think she's done good for herself. She's written a couple books. She has a channel with a large following. But I would argue she's not someone who's formally educated. And if I remember correctly, she mentioned that she was a former member of the Nation of Islam, or probably still is. The Nation of Islam, typically, they bring people in. They seek out people who aren't formally educated because it's easy to manipulate them. That's something that they actually do. I know because I've worked with the Nation of Islam. And when they realize you actually are intellectual, you won't last long in the organization. So, but that's part of it, right? Very simplistic, but they have a very simplistic view of society, of the world, understanding of the world. And so, let's see here. Part 2 of my original statement, somebody question is, it turns out that this lawyer sold my people who was never involved in the slave trade into slavery. Can I sue him and other African Americans? So tap in, sister. I'm gonna put the link in the chat. And I just want you to tap in and maybe I could better understand what you're trying to say when you're part of the live, right? But so that plays a role as well, right? We understand that there's an issue in the Black community. We talk about the lack of femininity, etc. But I can't, ascribe to speaking ill, particularly of individuals who are have mental disabilities.
And then Mr. Spellering also, he's a passport bro, so he didn't even want to be with Black women. So what's his issue?
I have no idea.
So I think he's following the Tariq Nasheed train to get
absolutely content, followers, and of course as a way to make money. And so a lot of he's a
goofy looking guy, so that's why he's a passport bro.
Yeah, my show we're solution based. Right. Mm-hmm. But a lot of times we have to spend time debunking misinformation. Right. Because it's so prevalent, extremely prevalent. It was one thing when we had to address this in the school system, or we like to call the public fool system. Is another one we have to do it because you have Black people promoting this type of miseducation. And one can argue that the normalization and promoting pseudo history started with the Nation of Islam.
Wow.
Malcolm X talked about this. He said, and I actually have the text. I have the book. Do I have it over here? Oh, goodness. Lord have mercy. Give me a second, family. Now, I always can't find a book when I gotta find it. That's the problem. I have so many. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to find it very quickly. But yeah, Malcolm talked about the fact that he was teaching us things that weren't true, but we didn't know any better, so we believed him. He said that on an actual TV show. He said, "Yeah, we actually believed the things he told us because we didn't know any better." Let me see if I can find this. This is a message to the Black man. Oh my goodness. Let's try to see if I can find this book quickly. Okay, following. I don't think I'm going to be able to find it. It might not be here. It might be in my office. That might be the issue. But yeah, Malcolm mentioned that he was promoting a lot of misinformation, but they didn't know any better. And so that's something that the Nation of Islam is known for, is actually going out. And many people say they're trying to help people or restore people, lift people up, when the reality is they're simply taking advantage of their ignorance. And we find that with a lot of Black groups who claim that they aren't of African descent. Nation of Islam, they argue that they are Asiatic, right? We find this with Hebrew Israelites. I can recall I was in Miami getting ready to go party on South Beach with my best friend. And I come outside and there's some Hebrew Israelites. They're walking around with like a banner of some hieroglyphics. And the guy says, "Peace, brother. This right here shows this says da 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 da." At the time, I actually could read hieroglyphics because I was trained by Baba Craig Kool-Aid Crow, who worked with Hakeem Ahmad-Abudi at the Institute of Positive Education, and he was the Midwest president of ASCAC, the Association for the Study of Classical African Civilizations. So I actually at the time could read hieroglyphics. I'm probably at an intermediate level. So I said, that's not what that symbol represents. That actually says da 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 da. And the guy looked at me like he had seen a ghost. And I said, you're out here playing on people's ignorance. Most Black people don't have a working knowledge of classical African history. So you're using that to manipulate people. And like I said, the guy looked at me like he had seen a ghost. So this is what we're finding is taking place in the Black community, is playing as actual knowledge or consciousness. Yeah.
Yeah, I understand because I fell for the okie dokie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I understand because I fell for the okie dokie, but I'm glad I woke up. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because that's not your reality, because your reality is as working as a healthcare professional. Mm-hmm. You have to work with various people in the diaspora. Right. Me too. That's the industry we're in now. Right. And Tariq Nasheed doesn't speak to the reality of people, day-to-day people. He lives in the burbs of Los Angeles in a nice house. His wife doesn't work or doesn't have to work.
Right.
No. So he can get online and do what he does.
Right. And make a living off of it by, just fomenting unrest amongst African people, particularly here in the diaspora. So that is an issue. But next show would be about rap music allegedly losing its economic viability in here in the Western world. Until next time, family, y'all know what to do. Always bet on Black. Peace.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Before you go, make sure you hit the subscribe and like button. Thank you for supporting the channel. And remember, here at Lumumba Speaks, we always bet on Black. Peace.